what I'd quite like you to do, because we may never get this opportunity. Let's face it, you might be assassinated tomorrow. Can you go through what you have, boiled down from your time in Antarctica?
The summer sunrise, sunset.
Yeah, the sunrise, again, in the summertime the sun is a lot higher, and then in the wintertime it gets a lot lower, and obviously it's the lowness that's giving it the appearance of darkness kind of thing.
But if you would describe how the sun rises and sets, what the sun does in the summer.
Summertime it does more of an arc, and in the wintertime it's even flatter, so you'd be kind of doing something similar to that, and then obviously summertime's more that.
Up and down on the horizon, it's not going round and around above your head in circles.
No, I just sit and looked at it thinking, oh look, the sun's spiraling above my head or something like that. It did like a better 180 arc, not like a 360, so you see it move in and move out, so it wasn't just like straight across, but yeah.
Good evening, and welcome to Mechanics of the Fourth Wall. Joining myself and Antonio Subirats tonight is Robert Shortman for some confessions of an Antarctic plumber. How are you doing, Robert?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
And how are you doing, Antonio?
I am doing absolutely splendid, thank you.
Superb. Robert, we've all, well, I hope some of the people who are watching the show now have had a bit of an introduction to you from the Oxford Mixer, but for people who haven't have had the slightest idea who you are or what you've done, maybe you can start us off by telling us when you were down in Antarctica and how you got to be there.
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of a last-minute slot, and in British Antarctic Survey, basically they normally send out newsletters and newspaper information, and for positions to obviously be base plumber, electrician, and all the scientific posts as well. So luckily the plumber that was there dropped out, and they only had like literally a month or so before the ship was sailing down there, and I had to obviously fly to the Falklands and then sail to Antarctica. So yeah, that was a interesting situation, because basically I managed to complete the application, do all the interviews and written assessments, and passed all that, and they were happy, and I went on the training courses. And from Brize Norton, RAF Brize Norton, they always take the TriStars down to the Falklands, and that's at the RAF base in Mount Pleasant, and that's where all the military personnel and BAS personnel fly in from. I mean, there is a ship that goes down, but that normally goes down months in advance, because obviously it takes its time to sail all the way down.
So Robert, how did you actually hear that they needed like a plumber type?
Oh, that was I just basically went into a local pub and decided to have a drink with a friend, and we were talking, and the girl that was serving behind the bar mentioned that she actually worked for the Antarctic Survey, and she said, yeah, we're looking for plumbers at the moment. I'll bring an application form and a photo album from when I was down there, and yeah, can fill it out and yeah, see how it goes kind of thing. So I filled it out, got a reply, and went through the interview process, and that's pretty much how it all kind of led from there. Was on the payroll then once everything was applied, and I went through all the testing, and then that meant all the courses which I completed, and that was the industrial gas, industrial LPG, and climbing, and other courses involved with close confinement. So close confinement means you have to go on like a special training course where you put the breathing apparatus on, like you see the firemen. So it's the breathing apparatus, the oxygen cylinders at the back, and then obviously all the fireproof clothing, fireproof gloves, boots. So obviously if people are stranded inside this building and you have to go in and rescue them, you can actually go in as a firefighting crew rather than just as a civilian without any kind of equipment. You couldn't rescue a fire. And like I say, because Antarctica is so dry, it's 10 centimeters of moisture falls each year, and obviously that's like ice crystals, and it can build up and clump in areas. So
you said Brize Norton. For people in the US, Brize Norton, just tell them what it is, what Brize Norton basically is.
It's an RAF facility, and it also has an airport in it, which can if you want to go to the Falklands, I think it's quite an expensive flight. It's not cheap,
So that's
and
the Royal Air Force.
it is, yes. Royal Air Force flights. Civilians can book flights on that, and it's just basically you go through a checkpoint, a simple checkpoint at the gate, and then obviously into the airport side of that. The rest of the base is pretty much sealed off anyway. So at the airport side, you would get dropped off, and then you just go through the standard procedures of filing in with your passport, all that type of thing, like a normal airport. It's no different.
Yeah. But when you were there, did you do training, kind of like physical training, anything?
Physical training, not so much. That's kind of they rely on your fitness. You'd go through a full medical, so the doctor checks you out physically to make sure that everything's in working order. You do like a full medical.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how they ensure you're physically and mentally fit to go
Alright.
down there and put up with the extreme cold and also the extreme isolation.
Cool. But okay, forget all of that. You
I was
go
going to
to
say, let's get straight onto the
Antarctica.
decent questions. I mean,
Yeah.
the question that came up first and foremost on a lot of the comments was, is there 24-hour daylight in Antarctica?
24-hour daylight. I mean, the way I explain it is the daylight is similar to like in Norway and Alaska, and obviously that is 18, 20 hours, and then you get a merge in between. So when I was there, because I wasn't aware of all the flat Earth truths and facts that I know now, the position of being aware of where the sun wasn't so much important, but I did pay attention to the arcs it was doing, and that was definitely horizontal arcs rather than all the way around. So I don't remember none of those. I remember more of the from one side to the other in the horizon kind of thing.
Wait. You mean you're in Antarctica and the sun wasn't going
Oh
round
no, yeah,
you?
yeah, that's right, yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Hello, Mr. Globalist. You don't follow this. So
Yes,
it was coming
again,
up.
you don't pay attention to the sky and that kind of thing when you're there because you're in such an extreme environment. You're kind of really trying to get to grips with how extreme it is. So the sun and all that, the normal things you might look at. Now, if I went there, I would, it would be time lapse, 360 camera, and then I could say, look, it's going over the horizon,
Yeah.
but all the webcams and all the images that I've seen in the past after coming back from Antarctica, the questions went up immediately when you're finding missing time frames and big chunks out of all this footage. And I was aware of that before I was even aware of flat Earth, and it brought up suspicions then as I was aware of the normal conspiracies.
So, Robert, just so we've got absolute clarity, is there 24-hour daylight in Antarctica, yes or no?
I'd say no, not all the time. No, no,
So is
no.
there 24-hour nighttime?
Well, again, if nighttime's defined as total darkness, like because this area has, no light pollution at all, there was nothing. Yeah, I didn't need a torch ever, and I never ever remember using a torch to get from one building to the other.
So sorry to interrupt. It's
So
nighttime. It's winter. It's Antarctica.
Antarctic winter,
It's
yeah, in the
winter.
it is dark, but it is not pitch black, and it's not total darkness. So yeah, you could see your hand in front of your face. I class darkness is in the room with no windows, and then the light goes out, and you cannot see in front of your face. The hand you have to get a torch out to see. And I've been in woods, and I've been walking in fields, and I've been in places where it's like that in the UK.
I have
So
too. My folks used to live in Shropshire, and in the UK, it's the area of the least light pollution. And as you described, in nighttime, you put your hand a foot away from your face and you cannot see it. And that's in Britain, not Antarctica.
that's what I've experienced many times, and that's why a torch is essential if you're walking in the UK kind of thing. So to not have a torch and to be able to see between the buildings, because the ice is not smooth and flat over the wind is ripping all the time kind of thing. So you end up with constant wind, and that moving all the ice crystals and stuff causes like undulations and like big massive lumps, so you get, so the land is not smooth even when you're going over it. It's not land, it's water, but the water, the frozen ice is not smooth. And if I could see my feet, then obviously I can walk, and it's not that dark. So yeah, it's like a dark twilight when I was there. That's what I experienced.
And that's in the winter in the Antarctic.
Yeah, it's in the winter. Yep.
So not pitch black.
No, not pitch
Antarctic
black.
winter. So
Yeah.
not 26 degrees off from vertical, pointing away from the sun. So none of that nonsense. Anyway, we all know this. I just want to know, sorry Nathan, just one thing. How many times did you end up doing like a cartoon shape imprint of you in the snow as you fell? Did that happen? Because I'm sure
it takes a while just to get used to walking on it. It's like walking on sand. That's the best way to describe it. If you've ever walked on a beach that's got deep sand and you're wearing Wellingtons, then that would be the best way to describe it. Sand dune, soft sand, not wet sand. That will give you the equivalent of how hard it can be. It's
things
definitely
before we go off this subject, because I know there's more than a dozen different subjects that we want to go through with you, but yesterday, or the day before yesterday, sorry, you went through sort of comparative differences between what we should experience based on being on a globe in the north versus what you experienced in the south. I mean, without me leading you too much, can you talk us through those differences, or the apparent differences we should experience but don't?
Yeah, I think that with the way the plane that we imagine is, the center obviously is the North Pole. Everywhere else from that reads south to north and north to south, so you get a bearing from that wherever you go round. And in the center there's more land mass, and I think by that in general it is warmer in the north than the supposed south. And that's, well, if you look at the edge of it, the sun takes longer to get to there from the middle anyway, so without the islands and without anything being else there, that's why it's so cold compared to the north, where you get, I think it's -40, -50 in the north, and you could get 60, 70, or they've had even 80s plus in the Russian base. So
will you?
very cold. So, yeah, very cold.
One of the things I thought was really interesting was when you were describing the globe pie chart versus the real situation.
Yeah, the pie chart. Each country has a section of the natural resource of Antarctica. No one owns it, that's what they say, but obviously each country has the section. Some are larger, some overlap. Argentina overlaps the UK section, which is quite ironic with it being so close to the Falklands. But they're generally nice guys, and everyone that was there got on because you're in the same situation. So when you saw visitors that were flying in on their twin engine planes, then yeah, they're all really nice and good people. Yeah, everyone that I worked with was nice there, so it wasn't a hard situation because they've all been vetted before that everyone's stable.
Yeah. So what were you actually doing in Antarctica? What was your role?
My role was the base plumbing and heating engineer, and I was there to maintain all the facilities, the plumbing, the heating, the waste, water, and keep everything running and warm.
So tell us what part of your duties. Earlier you were telling me about a situation that happened with when you were telling me about a doctor who wrote a book about it. Yeah, go.
Yeah, the doctor that wrote a book, he basically put everyone in the book as a story, and I'll read a section from it now. This is to do with me. So Rob the plumber, the man who's vital to our dependence on the heating, has parachuted in on the final Shackleton call. Plumbers were earning such good money in Britain that no one has applied for the first round of interviews. On the question of why he had applied strangely silent, it was rumoured falsely. It turned out that he was on the run from the law. So that's just a clip it from the
And
book.
what book is that?
It is Empire Antarctica.
Will you show it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what page did he just read from?
Sorry, can you just hold it up a bit, Robert? I'll hold the
Yeah.
camera on you for a second, just so you can actually see the book. There we go. Thank you very much.
You can get it on Amazon.
What page did you just read from? You know, because there'll be people out there who are saying none of this is true. You know, just so they can have a look and.
Yeah. That was page 91. And it transfers over to page 92. So it's like on the bottom of 91 and then on the top of 92.
Do you want to show the little dedication? I don't know if you want to. Well, you showed me the dedication. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, the dedication. How's that?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Down a little bit.
There we go.
Lovely.
So yeah, it's good. Everyone was good.
Says something about your fillings.
Feelings. When I was there, my teeth were slightly worse for wear. Best way to put it, and that was due to the tuck shop that was open 24 hours of chocolate and sweets and stuff.
What? Just free?
Yeah, free, and it's
Oh.
because you use so many calories down there. It's so cold.
Well, actually, Robert, I was going to come on to this later. I'll come back to the other points because while we're on this subject, you were saying about last time we spoke about how potentially the media spin that's placed on Antarctica is such that it seems perhaps more extreme than it is by virtue of them. Now, I don't know this for certain, but potentially filming people while they're in the acclimatization stage. So if you can maybe talk us through your thoughts on that and explain what you had to do in order to stay down there for 12 months plus.
Yeah, definitely. My experience was when I got there, the temperature was just going from summer into autumn, so the temperatures suddenly started to drop. So summer temperatures can be anywhere from like average of -4 or 5 to 10 to 15, and if the wind kicks up, maybe 18. But yeah, low temperatures in that respect, and then obviously it increases as the sun kind of moves further away or further in the distance. That's what it looked like. And the temperatures kind of can go where I was, which was Halley 5, round about -30 to 40 in the darker periods of time. Further in the supposed towards the edge or the South Pole, the edge I would say, more likely, near the edge where the Americans are based, and it's so secretive, they're very snooty.
Oh, wait. So the Americans are based nearer the edge?
I would say nearer the edge or nearer the supposed South Pole, which is not what it is. Yes, so nearer the edge, which would be in keeping with all their other, NASA's and stuff like that. So therefore they control that. And if you think about it, the pie chart, and each country would have their own section of a pie chart. Well, a pie chart always comes to a point, and if that point supposedly goes to the South Pole, then each country should be able to have access and have a base or have some kind of station there, and it's not the case. The Americans own it completely, and obviously they're, the answers that I've heard when I've asked questions of what it's like when they arrived there, they said they were very kind of, unwelcoming. They don't open the doors, you're not allowed on the base, and that type of situation. So that in itself is a bit suspicious, but not as much as when I was there. And all the 14 winterers that have gone through the whole winter, done all their duties, kept all the base running. The scientists have all done all their science work, and projects have been completed. So you do projects through these periods to keep to build new things in the base, and I think that helps with keeping you busy as well, because obviously the strain of being with 14 people in close proximity for a long period of time you can get a thing called cabin fever or that type of third stage effect, and that's as you kind of getting used to this dark period or the darker period, you don't get sunlight. The way the Doctor, I think, managed to avoid that was he used Philips lamps that produced like sunlight effects. It was very, very bright lights, and they're sunlight bulbs basically. I think
Are
they're
these
about
like
300 or 400.
sorry, are these like the seasonal affective disorder lamps?
Yes, they're the
Yeah.
ones. Yeah, yeah, they used them. They were doing tests while we were there to see how we were sleeping and how we responded to the lights. And actually, what the lights did do is they stopped that seasonal affective disorder creeping in at the last final stage. So as you're 3/4 of the way through your 12, 13-month stay there, it's the latter stage that you start getting these effects because of obviously the difficulties with no light. If you're just relying on uh, standard lamps, fluorescent lamps or that type of thing, even spotlights, they don't produce the bright light that you need from sun equivalents.
Yeah. So can you just reiterate for the people out there your acclimatization period?
Took
How long was
2 to
that?
3 months before my body could cope with the cold, and I didn't get affected or feel the kind of the severity of the cold, the dehydration, the humidity there is about 5 to 10%. So in the base with the ventilation system, they actually have a steam humidifier which puts humidity into the actual base because you cannot sleep well with such low humidity.
Yeah.
And when I did an expedition, which is like the time when you have time off to go on holiday, they they organise trips away, and trips away are normally going over crevasses and exploring the actual sea cliffs and the sea cliffs, ice cliffs and ice caverns, and
Yeah.
you get to explore it, camp at the same time.
So, question: do you have any pictures you can show us?
I'll screen share and I'll put them up now.
Excellent. We've been getting these for several days now from Robert, and every single time we get them, it is quite astonishing. So once Robert's got a few booted up and large, I'll present his screen to you all.
Okay,
So
this
can you
is
talk us through what we're actually looking at, please, Robert? I'll check that
we're,
it's coming through on the live
we're
room
looking at
while
the
we're
back
doing
of
it.
the Shackleton, which is the British ship. They've got a new one at the moment, but this is the old ship that just leaves a wake, and basically it's breaking through the thin ice and it leaves a path, and that allows them to either retreat or keep going through that. Just go to this is an interesting picture.
Wow!
The bases, there were 3 bases that were active in the winter time, 4 in the summertime, because there were more people there. The 3 main bases were interconnected with tunnels that when it was first built, these tunnels weren't tunnels, they were actually on the surface level, connecting these buildings via shafts. And these shafts, because the buildings were on stilts, would run up to them. And as the years progressed, you get the accumulation build up, which went anywhere from 1 meter to 2 meters per year. That eventually covered these, and it got to the point when I was there, they were 120 foot below the level of ice. So to get down the actual passageway, you had to climb down a 120-foot ladder. I've got some pictures I can show you, so
Yeah.
you'll see the vertical shaft when I get to it.
So, whoa.
Whoa!
That's what that is to do with the lamps you can see there. I think they were sodium lamps, and if you got it at the right angle with the camera and the flash, it kind of gave this really magical orange glow, and all that was the moisture in some of the tunnels that weren't active, where there's nobody going down it, and it's just a condensation collection formed these kind of square ice crystals that just hang from the ceiling. But you can see all the pipe work, and those are all the electrical communication cables on there.
So let me
More
just
heating pipe work at the bottom, and that was what carried heat through from the main building to these other units.
let me just ask you something. So, if you were actually in the tunnel yourself and you had your head up towards these crystals, is this how they would look? This orange color?
No, no, they look. I'll show you.
More
They
like
look.
the previous picture.
Let me bring it out. Yeah, I will. These are what they look like. That gives you a clearer representation. So you still see the sodium lamp, but
Yeah.
the glow's not there. So that gives you they're white.
And just so I've got it clear, and for the people out there, so these cables were laid. As time goes by, more moisture causes more ice crystals on the surface. The surface gets higher and higher, and the bases that these feed have to be lifted up. Otherwise, those bases would themselves end up buried. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, these
Right. So
tunnels were extremely strong because they had to cope with the pressure of all the ice above. And imagine 120 foot of ice above and how much that was. The actual tunnels will crush over time completely. So you did see distortions in the tunnel, and it wasn't straight because obviously the ice is pressing against it. And
yeah,
they
I
can
can see
take so much,
distortion.
but they can flex. You can actually see it is running uphill, and then it goes over that and then starts dropping down again. So there was like a hump in between
Right.
the straight passage.
So like from a technical point, so these tunnels, at the end of these tunnels, there's a some kind of base. This
They
base has to
they
be
were the
lifted up. So
sorry.
when they're lifting the base up, do they splice extra cable?
Yes, they will splice extra cable via connection points. They will add extra pipe work, and then they will lag it. Then they will add the framework of the steel structure, which is built up from the surface level of the existing one. So if you imagine it like Lego bricks that are hollow, they just clamp it on, bolt it all into place, keep doing it that way, and that's how they can increase the height of the buildings, because then they would raise them up on powered jacks and increase the leg height,
Right.
and
Cool.
put a plate while it's jacked up, metal plate that they rivet and bolt into place. All the workers that were working on Halley 5 were summertime. There was a complement of about 120 steel workers, because obviously it's such an extreme large structure to get it jacked up and all these things put into place. You couldn't just do it if you were, a scientist. A lot of the plumbing, mechanical, vehicle engineers took part in helping out as well.
Right. Cool. So do you have any photos of the exterior? Let's have a look.
Yeah, I do. Okay, this is one of the inside before we go. This is what it's like looking up the actual shaft. So you can see the ladder there. You can see how the pipes are insulated. Electrical cable there. Same with all that. They're big, thick power cables. So all the buildings are powered up and
So
connected.
this is where the splicing would go on, is it? Like
That's
towards
correct.
the
Yeah.
top of this?
Yeah. So at the top, obviously, that's 120 foot up to the top of the shaft.
Right.
It's quite a task climbing up it, and you've got a harness so you can actually clamp on as you're climbing up, similar to what you see.
Oh, you're such a pussy.
Mind you, after a while of climbing up and down it, you don't need it. It's similar to those climbers that climb up the radar masks.
Yeah.
You see them going up, and then they think, right, I put the clamp on and have a lean back, and
Yeah.
it's like that. You get used to it. It's all ice on all the rungs all the way up. So
Can you move it slightly more into the centre of frame or make it big? There we go.
as you can see, all the ice is built up even on those. So it's quite hairy going up and down it.
By the way, I said just for the people out there that he's such a pussy because I've seen some of the photos of him abseiling and oof, you want to
There we
see
go.
them?
That's me abseiling into a crevasse. You can just see that's the color. That's the color it actually was. It was the deepest, purest blue you've ever seen, because the ice water is so pure and it's compressed over time. It changes color, and you get these most magnificent shades of blue you'd never see anywhere, because it's done over time and the water's so pure there. And 90% of the world's water is locked up in this ice ring.
Wow. Have you got
That-
any more? Show us more.
That's looking down it from the top. So
Oh,
so what we'd do is put an ice stake, or that's the way it's normally done. Ice stake, abseil rope down. You have a set of things called dumars, which we use to clamp onto the rope when you're at the bottom. So once you want to return, then you will clamp and step up and keep going,
so
and then it allows you to go down and explore it.
yeah. So you showed me some pictures of how you travelled. You know, you were showing the links. You know, there's 3 or 4 of you linked together.
Before you move on, can you just bring up that sundog picture again? It was just so cool. Maybe make it a bit bigger.
Yeah.
I'll try and
Then if
zoom
you
in.
can centralize it and zoom in at the bottom, there you go.
Okay, that's not the clearest picture, but it gives you an idea of how the base was on steel legs. That is the shaft that connects all the cables and pipes that you see from the bottom. That was flexible. It was a wooden shaft, and it is designed because obviously, because when the building starts to sway and move, because the wind is so strong there, it allowed the shaft to move without straining the cables and the pipes. There were brakes, special design brakes in the pipework to allow for the movement as well.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you have any pictures of an onion?
An onion? No, I don't have any pictures of an onion, but I can tell you the story of
Maybe
it.
if you could stop screen sharing, and maybe we can ask you a few questions about that particular part of your job.
Yeah.
So Dan Pratt had his first video put up today, and he was talking about them dropping garbage in Antarctica, and you were very much a forefront of dropping some of that garbage, were you not, Robert?
Yeah, I was partly responsible, but I was put into the situation when I had a tour around the base. But they showed all the maintenance areas that I'd need to be working on, and part of that was where the wastewater went. And I thought when I went there that it would be, disposed of in tanks or some type of special containers, or it'd be incinerated or filtered. No, a lot of the wastewater was macerated, including the soil waste, into like an effluent, and that was pumped into the ice.
So how did this happen?
So
Walk us through the pumping, the making of these.
So there, each toilet system, there was 3 in the men's and 2 in the ladies, and that would go into a macerating pump that chops it all up, and then that's pumped into a tank in the building. And from that main tank, which is a storage tank, then that would pump it to the underground where they were storing the waste. And they weren't storing it, it was a hole in the ice that was cored out via injecting hot water into it. So you'd inject hot water into this thing, hollow it out like an onion, and that's why I call it the onion, because it forms a shape that starts at the top with a very thin neck, and then it bulges out to look like almost like a septic tank.
Yeah.
It's a very large one.
And it's just in the ice there,
Just in the ice. It's the same as when these explorers go there. They pee in the ice, and they probably clear their debris away and solids away in a bag. That's how they do it. But they still pee in the ice. And like I said, that's where all this macerated stuff went. So, in years to come, you're going to have the biggest shitsicle floating across the sea, and it's going to, affect whatever wildlife. It's not the most healthiest thing to have.
Imagine an iceberg.
Sorry, Antonio.
Something the size of Empire State Building.
Yeah, an iceberg full of
15 years worth or something like that. Whenever it started to whenever
Robert,
it finished, yeah.
There's going to be people out there that we're laughing about this, but they may not understand the implications of this. Maybe you can explain exactly what the rules and regulations in terms of Antarctica are and what you're supposed to be doing down there, or were supposed to be. I know they do some of this incineration stuff now, you were telling us, but if you can tell us what the rules and regs were supposed to be as opposed to what you've just told us.
Well, they removed a lot of all the solid waste, and that was all canned up. So yeah, all the physical waste was physically removed, transported back to the ship, as it should have been done. Any contamination or spillage was shoveled up on the surface. So just say you had an accidental fuel spillage or oil leakage from mechanical equipment, the skidoos, snowcats, that would have to be cleared up. So they had like a kind of cleanup kit for oil and that type of thing, and you just end up scraping it into a bag and then putting it into a steel drum, and then that would be shipped off. So they did
Can you just
get
say
rid of.
those words again? So a cleanup kit for oil that you have stored down there. That's correct, right?
Yeah, they did.
So
'Cause
I thought there was no storing of fuel.
fuel. Oh yeah, they have oil and diesel and aviation after gas, and they use that to power the engines that they have running there for the generators. So they're diesel, aviation fuel generators that run on after, and they basically would power the three bases in total. There was backup generator in another one of the buildings, but the three generators produced something like 30,000 volts, kilowatts, sorry. A lot of power. It's enough to power all the electrical equipment in
Oh,
all
you
the
just
buildings.
reminded me. Sorry to cut you off. Electrical. Harp.
Oh, I'll look and dig that photo out. I'll do that now.
So one of the things that Robert told us was that whilst down there, he came across an array of antennas that were just there to basically.
This is an interesting story. The British Antarctic Survey were the first ones to discover the ozone hole, which we all pay for global warming now. They discovered it with this array that obviously detected it or caused it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I'll have to see if I can find them. 2 seconds. Right.
And whilst you're looking, if you
Yeah.
can, how long were you actually there for? Or it's one
12
continuous.
months at Halley, and there's, like I say, the summer period when you arrive and the summer period when you leave. That blends in between the both.
So you went in. You went just before the summer, and you left just after the summer,
That's correct, yeah.
having gone right through the year, from one summer to the next summer.
That's it. Sometimes you can stay on if you want to. I didn't really want to. I wanted to get back to a little bit of normality.
And when you were back home, did you go into pubs and stuff like that and say, "Shut up, I've been to Antarctica"?
No, when you come back, you're quite quiet because you're
Yeah,
used to 14 people, and then suddenly you see thousands of people. It becomes
yeah,
quite daunting. You kind of takes you a while to get used to going into town and that type of
yeah.
thing. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a shock.
And whilst you were there, what were you? So you had you had a base, you had a quarters somewhere in one of the stations, but you also stayed in tents. You said
I did a lot of camping when I was there.
so.
Did a
You
lot of
get
it.
time off to go and do things.
That's correct.
Yeah. Huh.
So one of the things that really fascinated me, I tried to get you to come on to this earlier, was about the acclimatization to the area. So when we see people we're on TV in Antarctica, it's always portrayed as it's just going to kill you. Be there a few months and you die. And that's spin from what you told me. I will lead you in terms of
It
what I
is.
want
It
to
is
say.
spin. It is spin. Everyone there hardens up to that degree after 2 or 3 months. We can all cope with it. We all went on expeditions. There was no problem with anyone coping with the cold. As long as you wear the correct clothing, have food, fuel for heating and cooking, then you can survive quite happily there. Like I said,
This is after a period of acclimatization, though, isn't it?
it is. Anything before that, you suffer. I suffered periods when I either didn't drink enough, it's very dry, and the temperature affects your body, and you don't realize you're getting dehydrated. It's drier than a desert there. So as soon as you stop drinking, you double the water almost and the calories because you're burning them with the cold and using it with the fact it's so dry.
I remember what you told us about once you'd acclimatized, and there was a day when the temperature dropped to only -4, and what you were wearing.
-4 in the summertime after being hardened through the winter and being able to cope with all the extreme blows, wind, whiteouts where you can't see your hand in front of your face. That's the only time I couldn't see was when the ice was blowing up. The rest of the time I could.
Yeah, but yeah, you said that at one point when it was -4, you were in your t-shirt.
T-shirt and trousers that were padded and insulated, and
Yeah.
standard boots. Yeah,
So that's properly acclimatized.
that's properly acclimatized. I didn't feel the cold. I was working outside like that quite happily.
Yeah. So anybody planning any expeditions to Antarctica to go beyond the rim, bear that in mind. You'll have to do some training up in Alaska or something, and then get quickly to the south. You know, so that you don't unclimatize. So yeah, you have to bear that in mind. For anybody who's planning any expeditions, like Matt Powerland or anybody like that, yeah, there's the acclimatization period, which was how long?
2 or 3 months easily.
Yeah. So that's something to bear in mind.
So, Robert, as you've got the Gleason's or the As It Is map right behind Antonio, what's your reaction to that map based on what you've seen and what you know?
The reaction, I think I was about there, and the South Pole base was on the edge there somewhere.
Sorry, Antonio, I've put you on now, so you speak more into
That's
that.
okay.
So
So
yeah,
where? You were about here somewhere?
about there, yeah, Halley Bay, which is just kind of round about where your finger is now, right near the edge though.
Yeah, right near the edge.
No, the edge,
Right near the edge of the
yeah,
water?
right near the
Yeah.
water. Yeah, we were literally about 15 kilometers from where the sea ice is. That expands in the darker period.
And from whilst you were looking at your horizon, looking north towards the
Yes,
sun would appear to go this way.
yeah, that's it.
It
I
didn't go.
did a bit of flying when I was out there as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Tell us.
I was a co-pilot, and basically my job was to lift the heavy fuel barrels onto the plane, offload them, help the pilot out. I managed to get to do a bit of flying, and it felt like I was curving around like your finger just did there. It didn't feel like I was going straight a lot of the
Have
time.
you got the photograph of the controls? Because you tell us about GPS.
They didn't use GPS a lot there. That was the interesting thing I found. They did a lot of the direct navigation. And
There's
again,
no,
I'm not
there's no
I'm not a pilot,
GPS
so
towers, is there?
there's no GPS. It was really bad. And if they have to use really expensive things to get some kind of accuracy, they have to spend such a lot of money. In this particular box to measure this ice crack that was appearing, it was 250, 300,000 pound, and the box the size of a shoebox, and it was this accurate device that was designed. It was military grade, obviously sent from the military in America direct, and that was
Do you
used
have
to
the
be an accurate.
photograph?
I don't know.
Do
Wish
you
I
have the
did.
photograph?
I've got the photograph of the cockpit controls.
Yeah.
I can screen share that now.
Because of course, GPS works from triangulation. But if you're having to put things in a line, then you can't discern where you are from the triangulation. The triangulation works like Venn diagrams. So you've got a circle, another circle where it intersects, gives you one set of coordinates. You need a third to intersect again, and then you've got the approximate location. But if you have these in a line, you can't really discern where you are because there's no so-called Venn diagram portion. You know, you
This
have
is
to
it.
point.
This is the one picture I had of the cockpit, and this was from one of the previous winterers that were there. They left a lot of stuff that was just loose on the hard drive.
You need to
That's a.
screen share.
Yep, I'll do that now.
Also, I stole one of your penguin pictures for a
I know,
thumbnail for the advert for this. I don't know if you noticed. Two
absolutely fine.
king penguins sort of looking like they're kissing each other. It was there. It was absolutely adorable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Once you bring that up, I'll present you, Robert. Oh, there we go.
so that's a picture. It wasn't mine. It was done the year before when I was there.
So is it the central, the thing with the green lighting?
I don't know. Not
All
sure.
right.
Yeah, if you wanna close that down now, Robert, that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Stop sharing. There you go. Perfect. I've kind of lost my place now. I'm a bit overwhelmed with all the information we're taking in at the moment, Robert. You just need to click stop sharing, if you would.
Okay.
So, just so I've got the sequence. You go from the UK, you do some training in the UK, you then go to South America, you then go to Antarctica. You then in Antarctica, you're keeping them warm, kind of one of the, I'd say, the most fundamental job for somebody in Antarctica. So you're keeping people warm, you're helping with everything to do with keeping them warm and keeping the place clean, you know, so
That's
people
correct.
yeah.
Yep.
And you get time off. You have however many days off
You have a normal weekend.
right. And in the weekend you hang around, you just chill, what do you do at the weekend?
The activities, you could go kind of cross-country skiing. You could go out on the skidoo within a certain range. There was also the ability you had to go down to the sea ice, and you went in the cooler periods because obviously the worst thing you'd want to do would be go down to the sea ice in the summertime because that's how the boat docks.
Yeah.
It just pulls up to it, so there is no sea ice. So wintertime only allows you to get down and visit the penguins, and it allows you to abseil off the wall, the ice
Yeah.
wall.
Have you been watching Game of Thrones?
I have, yes. I've lived on that wall for a while.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about the BBC Clean Air Labs?
The clean air labs, they were designed to obviously measure all the atmosphere and snow and that thing. And yeah, little times when we were there, we were used to let off some steam, and we occasionally had the odd bonfire to keep spirits up.
And what would you burn?
Pallets.
Pallets. So
Yeah.
things that had been stuff that had been delivered on wooden pallets.
Wooden pallets, yeah.
And you're just burning them there, and further down the road, there's somebody making sure that the air stays clean.
Yeah, that didn't go down too well when we did that.
So potentially you've got your bonfires. I mean, pellets would count as fuel as far as I'm concerned, but you're burning it and basically putting a bit of pollution over the clean air labs. You're leaving these onions in the ground for Math Powerland to fall in when the heat bursts.
Yep.
So wait.
Math Powerland might end up covered in poo, quite literally, with one of his heavy machines. I mean, how do you respond to Math and his ideas about going down there? I mean, he's got a fairly clear idea. I don't know if you've looked into what Math Powerland's actually.
I've watched some of the videos and I've got some understanding, but a lot of it is pure fantasy, because if you're sitting in a warm, heated vehicle and you jump out, it's the same as acclimatization into a hot country. You go into air conditioning, and then you come out of air conditioning and your sweat's pouring and you feel like you're dying, whereas if you just actually sat in calmly in the hot condition, your body gets used to it over time. And the same with a cold. So you wouldn't want to be jumping in and out of a hot cab to cold, because what Matt Powerland doesn't realise is from the edge of the ice it slopes up to wherever it goes, and the slope, it's gradual, is full of crisscrossing crevasses that are just rampant everywhere. So to get up there with large vehicles, you would have to physically send guide teams out to probe the ice to make sure the vehicle's not going to suddenly fall down. So it is fantasy what is on about, because you couldn't do that with a team of 10 people get across. I mean, I think they did do it at one point, but it was done in such a manner, and there were so many people and so many vehicles and so many specialised mountaineer working ahead of that. So it is physically impossible without a big ship, and the ship would have to be so much so you could lift and crane off all your large caterpillar vehicles, and then you'd need all the fuel to do it. So you'd have to fly the fuel ahead of schedule, because you wouldn't be able to carry all the fuel. It just wouldn't be practical. That's why they had various fuel depots at all these drilling points. One for the fuel for skidoos and other things like that. Two for the planes when they land if they needed to fuel up.
I mean, I can see a way where it might be possible if the vehicles were electric and some of the new electric devices were used, perhaps. then that would eliminate the fuel drops ahead of time.
It's
But it
possible.
wouldn't
The only way
eliminate.
you could really do it would be to test that vehicle in some industrial freezer that could get down to the low enough temperatures that you knew you weren't going to get mechanical or massive breakdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some, you've got I wrote them down, the Shackleton and is it the Endurance? And
Shackleton and Endurance.
well, I
Shackleton
was
is
going to lead
the
you on to the helicopter rescue, and if
oh
I say
yeah, I
those
can
two
mention that.
words, you'll know pretty much
Yeah,
what I'm
I'll
talking about. It's an
lead you
exciting
into
story
that.
to say the least. So over to you.
Yeah, lead you into that. The Shackleton was a logistics ship for the British Antarctic Survey. The Endurance is a HMS ship and it's a warship. And it's there to guard the section of where where the British part is and to keep an eye on those parts. So they were moving the fuel from the Shackleton to the Endurance via helicopter, and then that was flying up the slope, which was where we were camping, and that was the pilots, the Marines that were helping offload the helicopter. I was loading the fuel onto the plane that me and the chief pilot were flying to the drilling depots, and we were dropping off the fuel at the drilling depots. So the process normally takes about, I think it's about 4 or 5 hours approximately to get to this location, and a similar time to get back. So when we were there and offloaded all the fuel, these two poor people felt sorry for them because they were in the tent for such a long length of time. The first time they saw someone, it's like, life at last, and that was that was good for them. We got a radio call, and it was a serious radio call. It was an emergency. And what had happened is the weather conditions deteriorated, clouds come in, and when you're dealing with snow and clouds, you get a thing called whiteout, and that's where you can't tell where the horizontal definition of where the land meets the ice, so it all looks like one, which means you could just literally fly into it. They did. The helicopter flew into the ice. It was a RAF Lynx helicopter, and it basically crumpled up into lots of bits. As soon as that happened, we were alerted. We had to fly back after sitting down for half an hour, resting, having a drink of tea, chatting to them in their tent. We had to fly all the way back. So the pilot had been flying all day, and he was starting to get quite tired, and he had to do a lot of flying from there to the emergency. So took turns in flying. That broke up the load from the pilot, so he wasn't sat there concentrating continuously. The interesting thing, when we got there, the pilot took obviously all the medical facilities on the Endurance, the Shackleton, were put into action, and they rescued the pilots. The two pilots, I think, in the front of the helicopter broke their legs. The winchman got flung out, swung underneath, grazed his head, and the other person was fine. No one was killed. The helicopter looked like it had been in a 100-mile-an-hour car crash. There was nothing left of it, hardly. The shell. So the two pilots were medevaced back to Halley, where the doctor at Halley, which is the one that winters all year, was there to treat them, stabilize them, and they flew a big four-engined plane, jet, whatever the make of it is, I can't think of it offhand. They flew that from Rothera, which is the main terminal for the logistics of all the planes. They're all based at Rothera, which is at the peninsula of Antarctica. So it's quite north of the peninsula, and what they do is they do a sequence of dropping at each point on the way down from Canada, America, that type of thing. So they just drop into an airport and they keep transiting till the point of where they cross into the Falklands, and then from the Falklands the next leg is to Rothera, and then from Rothera to Halley. So they leapfrog by fueling depots, that type of thing.
So the pilot, the crew had to be airlifted.
The whole crew had to be airlifted back to Argentina.
Right.
Don't know which hospital, but yeah, back to Argentina, because there was no medical facilities on the ship or the base that can deal with, real bad fractures and that. You need hospital, you need to be operated on, you need to They need
So
to.
were they airlifted directly from Antarctica where the crash happened to Argentina? Or
Yes.
yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
If somebody's asking, there are a couple of questions in chat. One is, how far in did you go?
The
What was the
farthest I was
furthest?
told was 300 miles from the South Pole. That's what they told me. When I was flying to one of the drilling depots, I asked the pilot how far was I from the South Pole and why can't we fly over it? And he didn't mention why we couldn't fly over it. He said we're 300 miles and that we just can't go over there.
Right.
That was his.
So,
That's just what he said. Whether you need special permission, which I think possible, or that type of thing, you know,
or
it's
whether you need to get something approved by the American government,
yeah, yeah.
or a special handshake in some secret door in the Ice Wide Shut party. Another question was ventifacts. Do you know what a ventifact is?
No, I don't.
Well, apparently it's a type of ice stone that's made by wind and magnetism. Somebody was asking.
Oh.
But yeah, I'd never heard of them.
When you're there,
Oh,
everything is white. The sky is blue. The sun is bright in the summertime there, and everything's blinding. So yeah, again, trying to look at the sun is burns your eyes because this is a reflection. It's
yeah.
so
Have you
intense, so intense. You have to wear sunglasses and goggles because you'll get snow blindness instantly.
have you any of your
Instantly within a
photos?
few hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can.
yeah. Any of the photos? You showed me a photograph of the sun going down. Well, either going down or coming up. That was just absolutely stunning because the sun
Yeah.
looked like it was actually on. I don't know. The circle of the sun was showing at the actual horizon. It was like an optical illusion. It was cool.
I will screen share that now. Bring that up in a
Well,
second.
you're looking for that, Robert.
If
Just
you've
before you bring that up, you were telling us about other types of spills, like kerosene spills, while you're out staying in huts. Maybe you could talk us through that while you're looking for that photo.
caboose huts, these are the huts that they use when you go away at the weekend to say to go and visit the penguins. You didn't necessarily have to spend a couple of hours skidooing all the way down there, abseil off it, spend an hour and then climb back and go all the way back. It would have been such an arduous journey. You'd have been shattered at the end of it. So what they did is they had a caboose, which was just basically like a glorified insulated shed with a metal stove in the middle, and that was heated by kerosene.
Sorry to just
So obviously, when you get spillages, it's just onto the ice. You had a
yeah.
spill kit, but
Just a correction. I said that a ventifact was a formation of ice. It's not. Apparently, it's a formation of stone. Um, I don't know. I have no idea what these are. Whether
I
the
mainly was on the ice shelf. I spent a little time at Rotherham when I did the Peninsula cleanup, which is a 3 month cleaning up operation of going around all the old bases that were set up in the 1930s prior to the treaty. There was tons of rubbish, tons of asbestos. They had to have a special asbestos cleanup crew doing the cleanup on all these other bases because it was that dangerous. The rest of it was coal, rubbish, debris that was just left there. So much so that there was 13 double-decker size cubic that filled the ship's hull of rubbish. That gives
wow.
you an idea of the size capacity of stuff we pulled off there. That's why it took so many months. This was filmed on BBC World. They did a documentary when I was there filming the whole thing.
Wow.
Okay,
So
Robert,
they filmed the
from the
cleanup.
chat,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. I think this is why I've asked it a couple of times, but even now I still see it coming up in the chat in all caps. So, can you give us a bit more clarity to what you saw in terms of the sun, what it did? Did you have 24-hour day? Did you have 24-hour night? And when you did it with us on Skype, you literally showed us what you saw the sun do visually. Can you just give us
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
5 minutes of talking it through, give it loads of detail?
The sun, what I can remember, which is the time when I did pay some attention to the sun before the flat Earth awareness, from what I could see, it did the horizon, so it would do an arc rather than a full horizon 360. That's what I remember more. I don't remember it ever going all the way round. That doesn't come to mind.
It would have been really, if it
You
had
saw it
gone.
rise and set. Hold on, Anthony, sorry. So you saw it rise and set, and just once more, just show exactly what you saw it do.
That kind of thing, definitely. Yeah.
So this is what I'm thinking. Okay, it would be so unfamiliar to see the sun actually around that it would have stuck in your memory. It would have. I'm sure. I mean, to see the sun come up and stay up and go round and just go round and stay up, and that's something that would be so imprinted in your memory that it would be undeniable. So this photograph, this footage we've seen, the time lapse of a watch timing the sun, tracking the sun going round, that's just complete and utter bullshit. I'm going to say this just now for anybody who's joining us. The person we have here today on Mechanics of the Fourth Wall is Robert Shortman, who spent more than a whole year in one stay, in one visit in Antarctica. He was the heating engineer in Antarctica. He went there just before the summer, all through the summer, all through the whole year, all through the next summer, and then left afterwards. All of it in one stretch. So this person has been to Antarctica. This person knows what Antarctica feels like, looks like, what you can do in Antarctica, the things you have to be trained for in Antarctica, how you travel in Antarctica. You have to be linked up. You have to have special knowledge about crevasses, how there's never full darkness in Antarctica, not even in the Antarctic winter. I'm going to screen share something here.
Sure. So I just want to get this once more because I know that it's
Sure.
never going to have too much clarity. Did you have 24-hour daylight?
24-hour daylight? No, I don't remember. I remember it. If you class daylight as it being solid bright all the time, then yes, in the summertime it was more brighter, and you still saw the sun, but it didn't move around like that. But from what I can remember, no.
And I'm going to show here. Am I screen sharing, guys?
Yeah, you go ahead, Antonio.
Okay, so what I did was I picked this little graphic of the axis of the Earth. Now, Antarctica is down here. Okay, this is showing the Arctic winter. Now, where my little arrow is, at some point, where my cursor is, at some point, Robert, wherever he was in Antarctica, was at that point. Okay, as the night wore on, he would have spun round to this point. If we were on a globe, that would have been pitch black. The so-called diffusion of light, the refraction of light, there's no chance it would reach round all the way to here. But what Robert is saying is that even in the middle of the night, it was not pitch black. It was more of a twilight, which would then become less of a twilight and more of a light in the daytime, and then back to twilight. So twilight all day through, but never actual black night, starry sky, beautiful, pristine, like we imagine. This globe image that we have here.
We haven't, Antonio. Sorry, Antonio, your screen sharing is not working correctly. Maybe if you stop and reshare again.
Oh, okay.
So with the position definitely where Halley is, that's further out, so you end up with more daylight and a little bit of darkness. So there was probably, I would say, about a week in between when it was more dark that I remember, and then obviously it merges in between the two, and then it starts to become more daylight, like the hours you get in northern Alaska, North Siberia, as far as you can go. That type of thing definitely felt that's what it was. So it wasn't 24-hour darkness permanently, and like I said, I never navigated with a torch ever, and I could see where I was walking.
So
okay, you're working, Antonio. Sorry.
Am I displaying?
Yes, so we can see your cursor and everything.
Okay, so there, at some point, Robert would have been here at some point in the night, in the winter, in the middle of the winter. He would have been here. You'd expect the Terminator being here for this to be complete and utter pitch black. It wasn't. He's saying it wasn't just that the snow. Sorry, I'll stop screen sharing. It wasn't just that the snow was white. It's that the sky had a blue hue to it. I don't know if you want to show any of your photographs, Robert.
Okay, let's. Okay.
So the dead air, I might ask you another question. I've got written down about the Monroe Decree, which I think was a subject that Antonio actually brought up.
Yes. So in the 1950s, I think it was 60s, at some point, the United States created a decree. It's called the Monroe Decree, and it was sent to all of the American nations for them to sign. What this decree was saying was that the US was proposing to act as the police for the whole of the Americas. So all nations in agreement were to sign this decree, and there you go. The United States would then be the police for the Americas. This is how the United States had the right to go to Colombia and firebomb the coca fields. Now, it turns out not a single country signed this Monroe Decree.
Wow.
So the Americans did it unilaterally. The reason I mention this is that, well, with what Robert was saying, which is that on a globe, Antarctica, this round continent, would be divided as a pie chart. And if it was divided as a pie chart, then the very center would have, each pie, each slice of the pie would belong to one nation, and anybody could go to the center. And on the spread out map that we're familiar with, like the one behind me, this pie chart doesn't happen. It fans out instead. And the interesting thing is that from what Robert says, and I haven't heard anything to say otherwise, the outermost regions, or the most distant regions from the shore, are not policed by individual countries. All of it is policed by the United States. So it sounds like the Monroe Decree extends to Antarctica.
Sorry, Robert, I've got a question from Matrix Decode, which is first, what latitude were you at?
The latitude, I think it was 79 degrees. I can't remember offhand, but yeah, it was the base. It was the Halley location, Halley 5. The new Halley 6 is at a different location. They tried to move it further inland and ended up
I know you
placing
went.
it.
Sorry, you go on. Sorry.
They ended up placing it next to a crevasse, which is not that convenient considering they have to move it a long distance to get it out of the way of it now.
Yeah, it sounds absurd to me. I watched the documentary on Halley 6. They have to move it every year because every year the shoreline changes and it finds itself too close. So every year they move it. I think it's 100 meters or something silly like that, a mile or so.
It follows the line of the toilet onions.
That's what it is. I bet you that's what it is. They can't, they've got to make a different onion. But the thing is, every year they're moving it a little bit. Why not move it to somewhere stable from where you don't have to move it, from where you can just winch it up as the actual height of the snow mount, rather than having to shift it? Unless what they're doing is they're slowly creeping towards the American edge. In 10 years' time, it might be right there.
It's
That's
moving up, yeah. It could be that way because it's independent.
There's a second part to that question actually. Before we move on, I know Matrix will kill me if I don't actually get the second part of his question. I know you weren't a flat earther at the time, but did you actually pay any attention to the stars and specifically the southern pole star rotation in quotation marks?
Didn't pay any attention to the southern polar star, but I did pay attention. The stars were clear because there was no light pollution. It's no different to being in any country where you get no light pollution and then you can see the stars. So yeah, you can see the stars.
And what about the movement? Was there anything? I know you're not doing time lapses out there. Again, you weren't a flat earther, but was there anything to suggest that they were moving around in a circle like the sun didn't?
I didn't pay attention to that, so I wouldn't be able to answer that.
No, that's fair enough. I thought that would be the response, but I wanted to ask anyway.
I mean, I did try use a telescope when I was there. It's just so cold when it's minus 30 and 40 and it's dark and you're trying to look up. You leave the telescope out there to try and acclimatize it to the temperatures so the lenses don't fog up. But with it being so cold, as soon as you put your eye near the eyepiece, that ends up steaming it up anyway. So it's kind of like a nightmare task to even look at the stars up there.
I just had a quick horror flash where, you know, when you stick your tongue on something metal that's out freezing cold, like in Dumb and Dumber. I thought you were going to say when you stick your eye to it, your eye skin gets stuck.
And
No,
there's another question. Sorry to keep rattling these off. Were you subject to any sort of official secrets?
none when I was there. They did clamp down when that helicopter crash happened. They shut all the base communications down for around about 2 to 3 days. So there was no communications coming in, no communications coming out, other than the people that were in charge. So they had control. They could do what they liked with that, but it was no official secret act or non-disclosure because there was nothing to hide. So I thought,
Yeah, nothing can be further from the case, though, by the sounds of what you've told us.
I would say all the countries are very much as culpable and do exactly the same type of thing to some degree, and we've done it in the past. And I think probably America, you know, it's likely they've had nuclear facilities of some type of that description, because that would give you instant power, continuous power, power where you didn't have to fly fuel barrels in and that type of thing. So yeah, I mean, I've heard. It was a story I think on Clearwater's channel, and it was to do with this chap that went to the American base in the 70s, and I think they were heavily into drugs, LSD, and all that type of thing. But the chap didn't come back the same, and apparently he was walking and discovered this facility over this hill. He again, you're taking it as second-hand information, so yeah, it's nothing. I can't corroborate it. I was there, so the things I said I can corroborate, but not second, third-hand stories. But it was interesting because
Have you
it did
got any
tie.
plans to go back?
No. It was so extreme. By the time I come back, I was more than happy just to get on with normal life.
Question.
The time when you were there, time goes very, very, very slow. Each day felt a lot longer than it was. You know, that's purely because of the pace of work slows down.
I thought
You
you were going
come.
to say because each day lasted 3 months.
No, it's just because of the pace of work. You're not in a rat race. You're not having to run around. You're not in this pressure of the system, which you know, you can feel the relief from the system when you come out of it, and you're in this type of isolation because it removes you from the pressurizing facts of normal life. Because
Yeah.
you're in a secure situation. You've got food, water. You've got an income. You know, so you're not in any stressful environment other than the fact it's cold, you know, and extremely dry.
And you didn't have to spend any of your income on chocolate bars or anything like that.
No, you can buy extra things, and like I said, I did. I gave up smoking when I was out there for about 8 months, and then the base had a tobacco supply, so that was pretty much it. Also, in
Yeah.
the book they mention the doctor actually does mention me as being the only smoker on base, and then having to go outside in -52 and smoke.
And were you ever smoking, thinking, "What the hell am I doing?"
I did, yeah. I didn't smoke a lot. Even when I started up again, it was like, you know, it was fierce. You imagine trying to suck in -52 air into your lungs.
No thanks. Did you smoke in the room when there was nobody there?
Not allowed. No, base was totally off.
Yeah, but you can tell us now.
No, not at all. The thing was so dry. If you did it, it would be like a tinderbox. You only got to get a spark, and because it's like 5 to 10% humidity, the wood
Yeah.
goes totally dry, and like I said, it just requires a heat source or an oxygen to get it going. And
So you let off steam going adventuring, abseiling and things like that. But you also did something for alcohol, did you not?
yeah, I built a bar. I haven't got that photo, but yeah, what I did is in the time when I was there, you after you've done your duties, there's some time you had time to kind of kick back, and some of the time I thought, well, the one of the mechanics decided to think, I'll start building this thing, and he started digging it out, and he kind of stopped halfway through. So I said, no, I'll carry on. Dug out this hollow, which was big enough that we could put 2 wooden benches in. So we put the wooden benches in, and we covered it with a board, and it was about 4 foot, 5 foot deep. And over the accumulation of, gradual build-up of ice crystals, months passed, and I ended up building a stairway down to it, and it ended up about 15 to 20 foot deep. The trouble was with the snow, it starts to slump down, so you end up with the roof, and there it did get to a point when it was closed because of the slumping roof. The last thing, if you had 15 foot of snow, you've had it. By the time they dig you out from all that ice and stuff, you're not going to be around. So there was a threshold of safety that it kind of got to, and then they closed it.
Right,
Yeah,
Robert, do you mind if I rattle off a few questions from people in the chat room?
no problem.
So, one, I don't know if you can answer questions and pull up a few pictures, but a few people were saying, have you got any pictures of the light that you described in that sort of winter low light level? But will you have people that will chase you now that you're revealing all this information, perhaps former contacts?
Possibly. It's not gonna. It doesn't worry me. I'm not worried. I've got nothing to hide.
Possibly, but you're not concerned.
No,
No, that's fair enough. That's a good and honest answer. That's good enough for me. I'm sure it'll be good enough for the person who asked it in chat. The other one was there a prevailing wind? And if so, do you remember which direction it was coming from?
The wind was really, really quite strong, and it was constantly prevailing most of the time. There wasn't much time that it did let up. The time it was the coldest through the year was when the darker period of time, kind of midwinter. There's a tradition where the coldest day of the year, you run around the entire structure of the base naked, not completely because of safety. You have boots and you'd have gloves and you'd have your hands to cover the necessaries. But that was a kind of traditional challenge, and it was also because you were so conditioned to the temperature. So that's another little fact that not many people know. I'll see if I can dig that photo. 2 seconds.
Yeah, that'd be ace if you could. Haven't seen any other questions roll by that were worthy. Some questions about whether or not Antonio would be topless in a hangout, but I don't really want those sorts of questions. So yeah, if you can keep them for questions. If you have got any questions, people in the chat room, just stick them all in caps, and I will scribble them down and write them. So yeah, got a few flying by now. So have you got anything that you want to ask?
Yes, if anybody wants to see me topless, they're going to have to throw dollars at me like this. Okay?
No. Specifically things about Antarctica would be handy, Antonio, if you would.
Yes.
We don't often get such a fantastic opportunity to have someone like you on, and I do want to kind of keep it serious. I know, fun aside.
Yeah. Just to let you know, I have a photograph from Skype that I can maybe share. It's of the twilight. Oh, it's okay. You're sharing one already.
Yeah.
Let me put that up if you would.
That's a kind of cloud base with the sun disappearing.
Can you talk us through when and what that is, please, Robert?
That is from the main Halley building, and what you see is one of the scientific buildings straight ahead. The shaft you see in the middle is the access shaft that you climb down to get into the tunnel system below. There was another one on the right-hand side, sorry, the left-hand side, where you see that wooden structure, which is where the pipework come up. Just further from that, the way you used to drink there was the water come from the ice, so the water we drank was physically shoveled in on a daily rota into this melt tank, which was underground. All these structures that are underground are still there. They couldn't remove. They've not removed any of those bits.
What time of year was this? Do you recall?
This was when it was becoming more winter, definitely. And you've got, like I say, a cloud base just in the distance, and obviously, yeah, that's a good way to kind of describe a picture. I'm just gonna have a look see if I can get some better ones, but that's.
While you're doing that, Robert, can I ask you another question? This one, I'm going to try not to butcher it. It's from, if I can read it, Bill Keith. Ask him if he is aware that Sorry, I'll start that again. If he is aware that American defense contractor Lockheed Martin maintains the Antarctic website, and that maps are maintained by the NSA, National Security Agency? ?
I'm not sure who maintains the map. I know that the British Antarctic, I'm just looking at it now, it's MAGIC, it's Mapping and Geographical Information Centre. So they do the mapping for the British Antarctic Survey. Don't know if people can see, but that's what that map is at the back up there. So that's their supposed, but yeah, everything's controlled. It's controlled from the start.
We have a question from Kofo, 72. Did you hear anything about Rodney David Marks?
No, no.
No. Okay, that was it. He said just a yes or no answer.
I mean, when I was there was a girl that died through a seal accident. I believe she was diving in Rotherham because they have a lot of the marine biologists, and for them to check the animals out, they obviously dived to inspect, and one of these leopard seals decided to grab this girl by the head, and that was it pretty much. So yeah, lots of people die. It's extremely dangerous, and it's
So another
yeah,
question: do you recall whether the shortest, darkest day was December 21st?
I don't recall. No. Again, when you're there, the days tend to become
Yeah,
quite unique.
and I think that would be in the north that's the shortest, darkest day, isn't it? I think.
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
looking at one of my notes, Robert, and I'm trying to decipher what I was scribbling furiously when we were talking a couple of nights ago. But I've got 1950s/1960s LSD drugs saw
Yeah.
something they shouldn't have seen.
That was the chap that went to the American South Pole, and he saw something he shouldn't have done. I think he was, you know, basically
Lobotomy.
spiked with some kind of chemical drug that just wiped his mind and made him kind of like a, poor human, real poor state. And it was actually a live documentary that I watched on, I think it's Clearwater, and that you see the girl actually going to visit her father, and yeah, he's not all with it. So whether it's a fact he just took too much LSD or they spiked him with massive dose of it, that could do the same thing, because not everybody has the same constituency and could cope with that. Some people will just kind of go, and that's where they stay, and that might have been what happened to him. But it was just interesting because of the secrecy and the way that Americans are very strict. It's just,
Yeah, but
they're
they don't
hiding
mess
something,
around.
and they wouldn't say anything if they were, and there is no one there to inspect it, no one there to view anything, and no one there as the police. They're their own right in that respect.
Yeah. So, and I take it that the military that's down there will be the bad boys, the ones that the other military guys don't want in Afghanistan and Iraq and wherever. Say you're going to Antarctica, so they're not going to be the kindest people.
This is a picture of a sunset that's quite good. It's not a sunset, it's how it kind of got twilighty kind of thing. Just going to share.
You also did some tours while you were down there, didn't you, Robert?
Did some tours, yeah.
You did some like hikes and stuff.
Did
I
a
mean,
lot
there's
of
obviously
walking, and when you're there, you get a chance to go on a holiday, and that's when you get a chance to go exploring. That's normally done in a group of four. Uh, the main leader of the group is the mountaineer chap, who's the chap in charge of everything. So he's the safety guy. He's the guy that makes sure you don't fall into crevasses or drive through dangerous zones. So he's constantly like scanning the horizon. He ends up plotting us an area that's safe so we can set up the two tents.
you're just screen sharing Antonio at the moment, so if you can,
Okay. Yeah.
if you want to, you didn't share your picture.
No, you need to
Okay.
go to screen share.
So once you start screen sharing, whatever's on your screen will share to the public. Does
Got it.
that make sense?
Yeah, I'll
So if
do
you can
that
just
now.
screen share once more and then bring that picture back up.
Okay.
So yeah, it's weird because it temporarily blocks your view of the Hangout. But yeah, you're still not sharing.
Okay. So
You with this, Robert?
yep. Is that screen sharing at all now? Or?
No, not yet.
Ah. Okay. It's Google technical itch. I'm pressing screen share. Right, try again.
It might be if you cancel. Oh, there you go. You are screen sharing now, but it doesn't seem to be working. There we go. Perfect.
Oh,
You could increase that, maybe make it a bit bigger. Perfect. So what are we looking at? If you can just talk us through what we're seeing.
That's like when it starts to get sundown. So you can see, like, you can actually see some of the radar arrays in the distance. Actually, it's a perfect shot of that.
Oh yeah, you were going to show
That wasn't the Harper arrays. I've not found that picture. Yeah, I have got it. It's in the midst of thousands.
I have it.
If you've got it, pop it on. I'll finish screen sharing.
Okay.
There we go.
Just got another question from the chat. Did you see any shooting stars?
I saw one. Yes. Yeah, one.
Do you want to stop sharing for a moment, Robert? Otherwise, every time I click on you, we'll just get Antonio's pretty face instead of yours.
Has that cancelled it?
Let's have a look. Not quite.
We can practice my faces.
Okay, I could do this. Change it.
Okay, let me screen share the array, and then we can move on. But would you tell us? You come back from Antarctica. You're not a flat earther. What was the process? How did you come to the flat Earth? This is a question that Nathan usually asks, but I get to ask it this time.
My mum kind of mentioned that I perhaps should check into it, and because I woke her up with all the common conspiracies of what not tend to be more truthful than false.
Yeah, one second. Am I screen sharing, guys?
You are, but you just like Robert was. You're just sharing Robert now, so you actually need to bring up whatever you want to share. You are sharing. You just need to share.
Let me do it again. I clicked on the wrong screen. My mistake.
You just need to bring up whatever it is you want us to see.
There you go. Are you seeing?
Yeah. No, we've just got a blank. Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the array of antennas?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what they use to inspect the supposed ionosphere.
Or to power up the yes, the dome.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're not a flat earther. You come back from Antarctica. You got a couple of questions, and then your mum says to you, maybe you should look at this. Is that how?
Yeah, it was after about 9 years of giving her the conspiracy details and all the things that were going on, and then with the last about 9 months ago, she mentioned it to me, and did it nice and calmly, and I kind of started taking note and thought, wow, hang on, I might check this out. I've checked everything out. I've woke her up. I might need to be a little bit more open than closed-minded. And yes, it shattered my space fantasy and dream, which you live in through cognitive dissonance and it being forced down your throat at childhood. Star Wars, all that type of thing. When I was young, that's what you watch at such a young age. So, that molds your mind about what they want you to believe in. So yeah, she woke me up, and after about 2 or 3 weeks of gentle nagging, I kind of looked into it and then thought, wow, hang on a minute, there's so much more truth and so much more facts than the globe. It's not deniable. It cannot be deniable. There's so many things that you could do. The experiment I thought would be a good one would be to get a powered civilian gyroscope, something that would like a ship equivalent, and have that mounted in a vehicle that's set at a level plane, somewhere like Australia where you've got flat roads, and then for that just to drive along, because as long as the road is relatively flat and measured at both ends. So if that's an example, you do the level at one end and the level at the other end, and it's 500 or 1,000 miles apart, that those 2 points are going to be level to the relative ground. The powered gyroscope travels from one end to the other, fixed in the vehicle, so it's not going to be moving. That, in theory, will have a little minute bit of precession, but nothing noticeable. And then that, in theory, if that's moving across the globe, then that should be pointing up or pointing back at itself as it's there. And
so we don't need to be on planes.
We don't need to go to plane. We don't need to go up into space. We could measure it on the Earth, and all we need is powered gyroscope. And
we could do it on the Trans-Siberian train line.
Wow, I never thought of that.
One thing I would like to ask you, Robert, was about the mixer. And as soon as the mixer finished, there was almost immediate criticism about you and your presence there. And this is something I've not actually inquired about at all with you, which is, how you came to be there. It was just
Oh, the
immediately
mixer.
into, wow, you went to Antarctica, tell us all about it, and then you've got a camera in your face. So how did you come to be at the Oxford Mixer?
The mixer. I was watching Antonio's website, the YouTube channel, and basically he mentioned the mixer, and I thought, what a fantastic idea. Come on, date and time and location, and basically as soon as it come up, I was, have to go there. Have to help clear up some of the myths that are there, and some of the fantasy when people think they can do things there that they can't. There's a reason that that's at the edge and it's so cold, and I think that's maybe the designer of the plane thought that's a good idea to prevent humans from getting over, because it's so hard for humans to be there in the first place. Similar to the center, if there's something that's want to be hidden, then why not make it the coldest place, or one of the cold place to be, very
And
hard to get to then.
There are people who think, enclosed dome, prison. And it might be a case of the way things need to work in terms of energies and forces just makes that shape. And then it's, we can rationalize that maybe if we could go up the slope and go over to the other side, we might be the Lilliputians. On the other side, we might turn out,
But this
who
is
knows
it,
what we'll be.
especially with the old map that, the Japanese map that was found in the temple that was,
The Kobayashi.
yeah, obviously we can't predate it or authenticate it because you're not looking at it and holding it in your hands, but just as the picture of it, and that being the symbol they use for the UN flag, if that's in the center and it's such an old thing, and then you've got all the extra land masses, that could account. Yes, they might not be dry on the ice wall, because if it's an ice thing that moves, it melts, it might not have been there,
Yeah.
and no
did
one
you actually
knows.
use a compass while you were down there, Robert?
No, I didn't know. Didn't do any kind of navigation. It would have been too cold. I mean, and again, most of that was done by the general assistant, which is the trained mountaineer who guided
Were the
everyone. So
compasses down there? I mean, do you know how they
yeah,
behaved?
I mean, yeah, I can't remember. Again, I didn't have a physical one. I've got one here, but didn't have one there. Wasn't no need for it, and
It's so difficult because, of course, if you were
I wish
there
it was.
now,
I wish
you'd
I'd had it.
check every one of these things, and you just, you're given us so much stuff just from memory, and it's stuff that you'd never had the slightest idea that would even be useful.
That's it. I mean, it's hard to remember everything when it's when you go there December 2003 and then come back in early 2005. So yeah, it is. But like I
But
said,
tell us about your expeditions. I mean, where did you go camping there? And
the expeditions, we went about 20 to 30 kilometers away from the base. They used a basic VHF radio, so that was how they would communicate with the base. So we went 20, 30 kilometers away, and normally exploring the zones that are higher up. But there was also times we went down to the sea ice. So it's broken up into a 10-day trip normally, and those 10 days can be extended. When I was there, I had a situation where it was white out for 2 or 3 days, so we were tent bound. So that was time to get my notepad out and start drawing and
Oh yeah. Do
writing.
you
And
draw?
I don't, but doodling kept my mind
Yeah.
active when there was nothing else to do, and I'm bound into a tent.
Yeah.
All
So
the
I
clothes,
saw.
all the clothing you have is cotton based and wool based and animal skinned and that type of thing for the warmth, because it's so bitter, so cold.
Yeah.
And the reason they have cotton is because it's so dry. There's no worries about moisture. Whereas obviously Rothera, they get supplied with Gore-Tex because it's so much warmer there. In the summer, it is above zero, and
So
in
I
the
have an sorry, I have an image of a tent.
tents,
Of the
yeah,
interior of a tent. Let me see if I can share it.
yeah, that'd be.
can you give it a bit more context? Because just saying I've got a picture of a tent sounds like we're selling
So
tents.
when when Robert said
These are
the
pyramid tents, and the pyramid tent, they designed it many years ago, and basically it's a pole. It's pegged out it's very very industrial thick canvas, so therefore it doesn't rip, and it's designed to kind of keep out the wind completely. So it's no good if it rained there. It would be soaked through in seconds, but because there's no rain and it's so dry, and you just get ice crystals and accumulation of that. everything is cotton based, because then it just keeps the wind out and allows you to breathe, your body to breathe a bit as well.
So am I displaying the interior of the tent?
No.
No.
Oh man, I thought I was displaying. 1 second.
I've got another question. Generally, wind flows stronger from south or north or a different direction?
South to north, I think. But again, it is all dependent. The weather systems moved round, and they were really erratic. 1 minute it was this direction, the next it was that. But you would have seen it if it was a general direction. There was a flag flying above the thing, so yeah, that changed direction. But I would say it would be more south to north, definitely.
Am I screen sharing now, guys?
Yes, you are. That's the internals of a tent. So in the middle, you've got your burner, you've got sleeping bags on both sides. Underneath the sleeping bags is a big kind of fur. It's not fur; it's a synthetic fur. You use real fur hats, but the synthetic one was used for what you base the sleeping bag on. And these were like the best sleeping bags you can get.
And
Fall
lighting?
down. Lighting, again, it's a little lamp. You don't see it there. It's hanging at the top of the tent. The boxes you've got in the middle are food, and you have medical boxes and spare things outside.
And you pull these with you on a skidoo, am I right?
These are all pulled on a skidoo that's linked with rope to the sledge and then to another skidoo. If you're two people moving together, normally you'd move as a sequence of three, so there'd be two groups together with a sledge in between. If it was really dangerous, then they would just link all four together, and then you just move it. It's very difficult to do that, actually, because it's like trying to pull a car. If you've ever pulled someone or been in a car when you're getting towed, when it's a rope, not a link or a bar, then you can't brake too hard or it stretches it out, and if you don't brake enough, you smash up the back of it. So it took a long, hour or so of just riding and, flipping the sledge or pulling yourself off the skidoo, and you're linked onto the skidoo with a harness, so you're wearing a climbing harness over your insulated clothing. So if you go down a crevasse, you don't get flung off your skidoo, you're still attached to it, and the rope was long enough so you drop below it, not get squished in between that and the skidoo. I went over a few of them before, a few crashes. Yeah, you are. Yeah, that's perfect. I went over a few crevasses before, and it was normally the back end that kind of dropped a bit, and you just keep, as long as you're moving, you're over it.
Can you tell us about that, actually, because that was something we haven't touched on. You talked about when you were covering the ice, and this was one of the questions from the chat I wasn't going to ask, but did it snow constantly or never, or what's the score with the snowing?
No, never snowed. It was just ice crystals, and in Rotherham you get snow, and in the occasions in the warmer period in the summertime, then yeah, you might get a bit of a flurry, but there's never any perceivable amount of accumulation. It's purely just from the ice and dust just building up. And
can you walk us through, no pun intended, how you would cross the ice attached to each other?
You just basically you're linked into a line, and when you're physically walking across it, you're just linked. So if one person drops in, you're linked into a 3 of a 4. So if the middle people drop into a crevasse, the two on the outer edge can act as an anchor, and then set up.
Does this ever happen?
No, close. It almost happened to the general assistant, but it was okay. No one went down. I've stepped into a few things, and you just step into it. There's no parts underneath, and it's just black void. So you had to kind of switch off to it, otherwise you'd just be a nervous wreck. Everything you step on, you think, oh, crevasse. But yeah, you're linked in safely. You do a lot of training in Cambridge, and then you do a lot of training even while you're there before you go out on the expedition. They run you through all the rope techniques. They check that you can ascend, they check you can descend, they check you can put all the equipment on yourself without being instructed. So you have to be well versed in climbing, and that's why they send you on all the pre-courses, so you don't go there.
What was the strangest thing you saw?
Just trying to think. The strangest thing was that I saw like a shooting star or a meteor or whatever it was, something off the firmament. It came whizzing across, and it reminded me of the planet Hoth in Star Wars, where you see the that drone thing come flying across, kind of thing. It looked like it was a big bright thing that would come whizzing across. So yeah, I don't know what it was, but it was bright. Yeah, I didn't see much other than the fact it was unique terrain everywhere. Everything was extraordinary. So once you kind of absorb that for a couple of months, it kind of doesn't lose its thing, but you kind of take it for granted. So you kind of almost treat it as normal.
Have you seen the auroras?
Am I displaying, guys?
Yeah, I've been showing what you've been showing, Antonio, periodically as Robert's speaking. So if you want to change that picture, we've had enough of that. But yeah, did you see any auroras, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, I was on nights, and obviously, being the occasional base smoker, or I was out a lot more than other people, so I got to look up, and yeah, I saw some amazing auroras. They were just looked like light fingers coming down. Yeah, that's perfect picture of it. This wasn't taken with my camera. This was taken. My camera, I had a 1.3 megapixel Kodak camera all those years ago, so it's really poor quality. This was done with an SLR camera that was set for low light, so it could give the enhancement. It's like trying to take a picture of a hologram. It's very, very difficult because you need the right settings, the right time and exposure to get it. But that gives you an idea of the reds and greens. But when I was there, I saw reds, greens, blues, and it was
What about the moon? Did you see the moon?
I did see the moon, but I didn't again pay any attention to it. It's just you treat everything for granted there, and
There you go.
the moon and the sun and the stars. Before you're aware of what the flat Earth is and what we've been lied to, you just take all those for granted, and it doesn't even come into your mind. Yeah, the sun, that's lovely. Yes, the moon. Normal people would just laugh, but because we're aware and actually would study that a bit more, we could say, well, that shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be seeing the moon there if it's over the other side of the world and you can see it. So yeah, I wish I'd have done that, because they would have been able to say, I can see the moon. Can you see the moon over the part of the world which shouldn't be seen? And yeah, I saw the moon. There's a clear picture of it there. So moon, stars, but again, it's being twilight. You can see the twilight there. You can see how light it is. It's so light the camera can take a picture, and it was light that you could see the poles. You could walk along the guidelines. You could do that, and you could step over stuff without fumbling.
And this is possibly from either a new flat earther or I don't know why, but did the toilet swirl the other way around?
No, they didn't. And then I even when I went home from the journey. Obviously, I went to the peninsula thing. After that, I got the opportunity.
Sorry, Antonio, bring that back up.
Got the opportunity to sail on the Shackleton all the way back from Falklands to England, Grimsby, which is where it docked. And I did the experiment, and I thought it was a bit nonsense, because I did it and thought, well, I don't think much to that, because it's a question of which way I felt the water was being poured. Not so much that, and it's it didn't impress me. I wasn't. Wow, that's it. This. We're on a globe. All it proved me that the water was going down a plug hole, and it was swirling one way or swirling the other way.
Yeah, I've tested this here in Stockport. Maybe 3 miles away from me in Stockport. Pretty much same latitude.
And did you manage to go either side of the equator in Stockport, and did it swirl each way, kind of thing?
It definitely swirls each way, so we must.
That's right. There must be an equator in Stockport then. That's
it.
No, I think it's designed on the way the water comes out the tap, the way the plug shape, the way the water can centrally kind of start to go down, and yeah, it didn't wash with me much.
There's no need, Robert. There's conclusive debunkings of the Coriolis effect all over over the web from flat earthers. So yeah, I mean, it was just one of those. I think the question may have been asked in what's it in jest.
Yeah, it didn't wash with me. I was like, weren't impressed then.
Have you seen
Or less now.
Robert? Have you seen the Auguste Piccard balloon thing that was recently made into this Hennessy advert in the US?
Oh, indeed, I have. Yeah,
Yeah, and his description of a flat dish that with a upturned rim.
Well, he was the first one to go up to that height pre-NASA, so if he's going up and admitting that he cannot see no curvature at 50,000 feet or 11 miles or whatever it was exactly,
Well,
he can't see when he's looking out, then...
But the thing is, he said that it looked like a flat dish with upturned edges. So however far he was seeing, you know,
that's probably more.
And we assumed that he was looking with just his eyes. You know, he's a scientist. He's going to be looking with more than just his eyes.
There is that recent balloon chap that jumped out, and obviously they messed up with the camera footage because it wasn't all GoPro, was it? There was the split second of 2 seconds of normal footage where the screen was just a standard HD camera, and you could see that the horizon was flat. I've paused it and laid a ruler across the center of the monitor, and you said, yeah, that's flat. Oh no, it's GoPro and it's got a lovely curve now, so yeah.
Yeah, and it's an absurd curve. And anyway, the whole curve thing, the eye will play tricks. I was on the beach in Spain not so long ago, and the way the land was coming down from my right towards the ocean, and I have the beach moving away from me, curving, scything towards the left, and the ocean over on my left, and the interaction between the two, between these three elements, caused an illusion where it looked like the ocean was curving down towards the land. Now I'm aware of visuals, and I'm looking and I'm trying to basically, do a mind snapshot of how this is playing, because if I drew out the horizon line of the ocean, if I carried on drawing out that curve, I would be pointing down towards the floor behind me if I just carried on drawing it. And obviously that's not where the sky is. The horizon isn't actually there. There are optical illusions that happen, that genuinely happen with the real world, not with drawings, not with Escher type, waterfalls or staircases. There's all kinds of illusions that happen with the real world that are not just light refraction.
I did see illusion when I was in Antarctica. There's the situation of the ice reflecting back, and you almost got it looked like it was blocks that were jumping out of, and all it was a reflection from the distance from the ice, and that was causing it to jump up. So yeah, I've seen those type of strange illusions there. Yeah. Very strange.
Yeah. So I just have a question now. And I'm going to say it now, even though we're airing. What do you mean, Nathan, that there was all kinds of questions about Robert coming out to the thing? I didn't hear anything.
Well, no, there was videos that were made I don't want to give these people credit, Antonio. But people basically said, all this stuff with this Antarctica guy just being there, it's all...
Yeah, right, yeah. You mean the typical paranoid person who will see... that I mentioned to Robert earlier about the book, and I kind of hinted to it a little bit jokingly that, if you read from the book and you say what page and all of this, people can go and check up. Now, all that the very paranoid will do is they will just extend the conspiracy further to the point where to prop up the conspiracy...
Planted the book in the first place, yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole... yeah, we don't need to worry. The truth is that with a flat Earth, with any big major conspiracy, but with a conspiracy that's so paradigm shifting as this, there will be people losing their mind. I'll give you an example. Today, something happened. I'm in the car. I'm with Patricia, and we've been talking about something. And I mentioned to her, a woman whips her dog. Okay, this happens, right? So a woman whips her dog with a leash, a cute little dog. And we're talking about this, and I mentioned to her how Nietzsche was hospitalized. He was sent to an asylum.
Yep.
basically for horsewhipping a man. Okay, now the reason he horsewhipped this man was he lived, his quarters, his rooms were on a junction, and he'd been seeing this guy with a horse carrying a much too loaded cart, okay, flogging this horse, and he thought that this man was cruel. He was a cruel man. He should have paid for 2 horses or done twice as many journeys.
Yeah.
Anyway, at one point the horse collapsed at the junction, and the man was horsewhipping the horse to get it up, okay? And Nietzsche just lost it. He went down, ripped the whip from the man's hand, and started whipping the man to demonstrate to the crowd that this thing lying down on the ground, exhausted, the horse, was a sentient human being, and that to whip a sentient being is the equivalent to whipping a human. You know, we're all sentient beings.
Yes.
Anyway, he was hospitalized for this. Now, 2 seconds after we've said this, in other words, you know, German philosopher, horse whipping, a car pulls up, it's a BMW, and it says on the back of it, German whip. No idea what that's about. Now, the other day, no, this is just a sticker on the back of the car, German whip. That what? The other day, we're talking about...
Do you know what that means, Antonio?
No.
Well, whip is another name for a car, so your whip is your ride. So
Right.
in America, they have this thing called ghost riding the whip, which is where you will put your car into cruise control at very slow speeds and literally have the car driving itself while you're hanging out the windows. Idiots. But that's called ghost riding the whip.
Right.
Wow.
So, but this is the thing. Like, to me, I don't know. It just says the words German whip. It's like, wow, that's a bizarre coincidence, because this is 2 seconds. We've just finished talking. The car pulls up and parks in front. German whip. Interesting. 2 days ago, we're talking about phenomenology and how words, symbols that will conjure images, like cup. You know, we think visually, and sounds are there to key thoughts in terms of visuals. That's how we think. We think in terms of tokens, you know, cognitively speaking. We're talking about this, and somebody that's in the car with us says, so how does a blind person see it? We have no idea. How does a blind person cogitate? How do they visualize? How do they associate with the world? Very interesting. We don't know. We pull around the corner, and there's a van that says the blind man. Okay. Now, this is a van that actually, you know, somebody who installs blinds, that's his van. But it's just like, what? So when things like this happen, somebody who has a tenuous grasp, who might be going through stress at work or at home or with health, when these kinds of things happen, the possibility of that person just coming to the wrong conclusion and thinking the universe is fucking with me, or the devil is trying to fuck me up, or God is giving me clues, or
They're reading into patterns that are always there, I think, possibly.
yes. So what happens? That's when bizarre things happen. Now, when you find something like the flat Earth, there will be people out there who come across it, and it's just a little bit too much. They don't break down to the point where they have to be hospitalized. They're still functioning, but on YouTube, where they can make comments and make videos, they will spew their psychosis,
Right.
you know, their craziness.
Their way of releasing it.
Yeah, we see it. Well,
Nice
people.
segue, actually, Antonio. When you got back from Antarctica, Robert, how did you find easing back into life? Was there any PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder? Or
Yeah, there
whatever you
was
call it?
a little bit. Again, you're in extreme isolation for such a long period. When I was there, they only had, you know, you had videos, DVDs, that type of thing, and obviously your own computer, personal thing. You had no internet, nothing like that. So yeah, it did. You know, it takes a while to get used to normal society because you're in such a slow pace of life, moving to a quick pace of life. So as soon as you go back to the, you know, any normal thing like the UK, I came back and the first thing I could smell was petrol and diesel fumes in the air, and it was very busy everywhere, kind of thing. So the first experience going into town was the day after I got back, and that was quite, takes a while to get used to. It is a similar thing to obviously if you're a prisoner and then you're released. and then you've got you can go where you like, kind of thing. So that's how it kind of felt. Yeah, it didn't take more than a week to get back to normal.
I mean,
You're
we're
so
coming
much
up on a
in.
couple of hours, Robert. What I'd quite like you to do, because we may never get this opportunity. Let's face it, you might be assassinated tomorrow. Can you go through what you have, boiled down from your time in Antarctica now that you're a flat earther? Can you just give us like a round out of some of the things that you've come to the conclusions of?
I've come to the conclusion that the world is definitely flat. I've come to the conclusion that the South Pole is not what they say it is, and there's more that goes on. Each government agency each country has their own kind of agenda to whatever they're doing there. And again, there's not anybody inspecting each country, so each country has to follow the rules, but that requires them to be monitored by someone. Who's monitoring the governments? Who's the overseeing body of that whole area? No one. Because
I mean, I don't know if
no one owns it. So if no one owns it and no one's monitoring, and they're still doing all the things they're doing, it's questionable they can get away with what they like.
I mean, is there any other forms of contraband there? I know there's people in the chat again, probably joking, saying, "Is the drugs down there?" But I mean,
No.
what other? You've gone through fuel and things, but are there other things that? I mean, more along the lines of stuff that is in the Antarctic Treaty that they tell us categorically shouldn't be down there that is.
No, they don't. They don't grow plants or anything. And there's no kind of.
No, not
Yeah.
specifically drugs. That's just
Okay.
where I've kind of got that question from the chat. But I'm leading it on to stuff that's in the Antarctic Treaty as opposed to that sort of
Physically, you're
contraband.
not allowed to bring soil or plants or anything like that down there. So they have none of that there. There's nothing growing in the base. So in some bases they might grow lettuce and all that type of thing, but yeah, generally you're not allowed to bring contaminated stuff on there for fear of adding some kind of, I don't know, problem. They didn't ever explained it. They just kind of said, oh, this is why we don't have the soil and stuff like that there.
So you're not allowed to take
keep it
soil.
pristine.
You're allowed to macerate up the waste of everybody on
Yeah,
board and pump it into the ice in this unknown well.
That's it. Dump 1,000,000 tons of shit into the ice. Yeah, that's what
It's amazing. I mean, the propaganda they give us shows us, on deck it's saying things like "no smoking, no fag butts on deck," but it's a farce.
But it's true on the ship. You're not allowed to smoke. They have a smoking room inside the ship, and the reason for that is if portholes are open and you chuck a butt over the side, it can get sucked into if someone opens a window. So yeah, there was no smoking on deck, and that was purely a safety thing. Again, the ship is not a place you want to see catch on fire, especially when you're in it and you've got the freezing -2 water beside you, and you last 2-3 minutes in it.
And my point is, forget the fag butts. It's more about the massive amounts of fuel that they're storing down there, the massive amount of waste that they're leaving down there.
Yeah, huge amount of fuel, huge amount of waste, huge amount of stuff that's buried in the ice that slowly emerges once it pushes out from the edge, and that's the only way that it gets rid of it. But yeah, there's a vast amount of stuff that they can't get rid of, especially with these bases that have been built and then buried, through general accumulation. When they started first doing these bases, they didn't have them on stilts, they didn't raise them off legs, and what would happen is they would just get encompassed in snow and ice over a period of year. They would try and clean them with the vehicles and that, but they could only maintain it for so long, and eventually all these bases succumbed to the crushing forces of the stuff that built up. So that's how they decided to do it on legs and get it up purely so it could keep up with the metre or so gain each year.
I mean, we were lucky enough to pick your brains at the Oxford meet. Did you have any interesting conversations with people that you met there?
Fantastic. Yeah, everyone was brilliant, and it was such a special day. Learnt lots of interesting facts like grounding, to actually cause pain and stuff to go away. So yeah, just standing on the ground barefooted outside. Yeah, there's a lot of brilliant people there with ideas, and also they help. If someone's got information or knowledge of some situation or something not aware of, then information was flying back and forwards, and you could normally, someone would help fill you out the information. So well, this might be how it happened, and yeah, lots of ideas and wonderful people. It was a really good day.
What sort of plans have you got for the future then? I know you've got Dreamweaver 2007 as your YouTube channel, presumably for commenting.
No, I haven't. No, it's Doom. It's Begins with a D.
Doomweaver. Oh, okay.
That's twice you've plugged Dreamweaver, whoever it is.
I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. So Doomweaver 2007 is your YouTube channel. You've
Yeah,
got a
that's
couple of
correct.
mirrors, mainly because it's you that's the star of those. But are you planning on making new content or getting more
Yes,
information out there?
I put my first video out today, just kind of saying that I'd be appearing on Mechanics of the Fourth Wall and doing a little chat. So yeah, that's my first official lone video that's got no kind of cloning or copying or mirroring. That's good. Yeah.
I really hope you do. I
So
mean, it's one of
yes,
these things that a lot of
I
us are
will be.
compelled to just do and get information out there. I know you told us about how Mark Sargent was good enough to pass some information on to you in the initial stages, and then that obviously led to you coming to the Oxford meet. But I really hope we see some more stuff from you, more material on YouTube and more information, because it has been absolutely overwhelming hearing from you. It really has. I think Antonio will agree, will you not?
There is a good flat Earth event that's coming up very shortly, and that's in the 25th of July. I'm just gonna bring the details up now. That's something I'm going to go to, and that is a flat Earth event, and it is calling for flat earthers. Allegedly, Dave, the Bedford recreating the famous Bedford flat experiment. Join us for a fun day out on Saturday, the 25th of July. Campus £9 per person. Yeah, and it's got all the details on that, so it's probably something I might try and send across to one of you, and then you perhaps can pop it up on your thing. Yeah, but that's another event that's happening. It's in 8 Fenbank, Iceland, Ely. Yeah, recreate something we already know is true. But that
That's
will
on
be
the 25th of this month, is it not?
25th of July.
Down in Cambridge.
Sorry, 25th of just looking.
June.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it's this month. Yeah, next weekend.
Yeah, which is fantastic news. It'd be really great if they can recreate it in pretty much the same way that we're all accustomed to knowing it, but in modern times with modern cameras.
That would be something to celebrate, I tell you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got people like Ben Matrix Decode, who has recreated the Bedford level experiment on several occasions, just not on the Bedford level. And it would be really nice to actually recreate it for the namesake, if nothing else.
Namesake, yeah.
And what? Sorry, Antonio.
I'm going to the Bedford level. I'll be coming. So are you going, Nathan?
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, Paula's very heavily pregnant, so that might have a bearing on it. But I'm really hoping I can make it down there. It'd be lovely to meet allegedly Dave and again a load of other flat earthers. It'd be wonderful to actually do. I just want more. I know you'll echo this, but after the event, sorry to witter on, Robert. I know you're the star here. Yeah, after the event, both Antonio and I had the same sort of feelings, which was that you feel like you haven't got enough out of it, like you haven't spent enough time with people, like you haven't quizzed them enough. And in reality, it's one of those, you have a really good time and you never want it to end. You could be there all day and all night and the following day just chatting and chatting and chatting. It was kind of a bit like that, but it was a really nice experience for all the naysayers who say that we're just shills or whatever the hell they say.
Oh yeah, totally.
Sorry, my camera just dropped. What you were saying was when I dropped. By the way, people in chat have been saying that they've been having problems with the feed. I don't know what's going on, but you were saying about Robert doing some content or being more visual. I'm going to ask Robert to come on my next hangout. I'm sure you're going to be invited on hangouts. The kind of things that we do. They're just fun, and there'll be people out there. Oh, man, I've got this question. Now there was Flat Earth Skeptic India was asking sunrise and sunset. I think it's coming late, and if you just explain again, if you show him the curve, the summer sunrise sunset, because this kind of destroys the cell Earth.
The sunrise again. It's like in the Arctic, in the summertime the sun is a lot higher, and then in the wintertime it gets a lot lower, and obviously it's the lowness that's giving it the appearance of darkness kind of thing.
But if you would describe how the sun rises and sets, what the sun does in the
summertime, it does more of an arc, and in the wintertime it's even flatter, so you'd be kind of doing something similar to that, and then obviously summertime's more that.
but it doesn't
But it's
do.
ultimately up and down on the horizon. It's not going round and around above your head in circles.
No, I just sit and looked at it thinking, oh, look, the sun's spiraling above my head or something like that. I would have...
Or behind you, you know, it being in front of you, then to the left, then behind you, then to the right.
That's right, yeah, it did like a better 180 arc, not like a 360. So you see it move in and move out. So it wasn't just like straight across, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
pretty consistent with the way the as it is map describes it then.
So if you're here and your 180 is, well, if the sun's coming around doing this, you're here.
Yeah.
From your point of view, it's going to look like 180. It's
Yes.
not going to be coming up here, but we have our perspective. You're here, you're going to see it come and go. The cell Earth says that it goes round, like you see in the video footage, and it's just light bending. So unfortunately, it kind of kills the cell Earth. Apologies, Stephen Christ. Maybe you can lift your curse now. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have it from somebody who's been to Antarctica. It does not go around. It wasn't a case that it kind of went around and then it went beyond some mountains and then it came. No, it doesn't go around. It comes from one point in the horizon. It appears above the horizon, goes across the sky, goes back down beyond the horizon.
I mean, before we round out, Robert, was there anything that you wanted to add to the show? And for anybody watching who just wants to hear the same thing repeated 15 times, feel free to watch the video over and over again. The information will not change. But yeah, is there anything you wanted to round out with?
No, I think everything's been covered. It's really good. I mean, again, I've got lots of stuff that I'm going to add to content in future, so that will be new stories and things that I remember, and I'll add pictures and stuff with that, so that will help.
Again, going from the chat feed, what people are really keen to see from you is probably just some slideshows, and I know you've got thousands of images, but yeah,
I'll try and
put some
compile as
slideshows
many.
together, everyone chuffed.
Yeah, compile as many
Also,
images as I can.
You know, you'll be passing stuff, your channel, you'll get more subscribers and everything, but you'll pass stuff to Nathan, me, everybody else, and we'll pass it out. It's cool. The way things work is, you know, it's good. Whenever I come across anybody who's got cool and interesting stuff, I try to share it. And I'm sure other people will do the same. If you don't mind, this is a call out to Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. I don't know if he's out there. If he is, he's got some kind of interesting light relief on the Orlando shooting. I don't know if he's going to come on, but if he does, I just thought this might be a good way of rounding out the show with a little bit of humour. But we'll see. We'll see whether he comes on or not.
If you two can jump amongst yourselves for a second, I'll ask David if he's in chat, and hopefully he'll join us before we do round out the show. He might miss his chance because we're not going to have loads of dead air, unfortunately.
Yeah, no. Well, the thing is, I sent him a message. He was travelling. He might just jump in now. He likes gate crashing, I think. But yeah, if not, I wanted to start tonight's show. We didn't have time, but I wanted to say, okay, let's start when we go live. Just before it goes live, we have this period, this buffer when we don't actually know when it's going to literally start going out live. I was going to urge the two of you to just start laughing, Orlando shooting, haha, just over and over, so that's how we would start, because the whole thing is a freaking farce.
Yes, of course it is. I think it's personally, again, the no gun confiscation that the UN want to push forward, and the control of this gay, lesbian, transgender thing that they're pushing down everyone's throat. And obviously they can't get their own way, and there's a lot of boycotting Target stores and, you know, general upset against the whole thing because, you know, it's just not right.
Well, the thing is, we have, I think, you know, they do have censors, they do have people eavesdropping in bars and pubs and social clubs and whatnot. So I think this is just me being a conspiracy, an analytical researcher. I think that the whole gender, the gender operations, the sex change that happened with the guy with the Kardashians and all of that, I think that that's not gone the way they were hoping that it would go. So they're trying to, they're trying to cause a little bit of sympathy towards people. Gays have nothing to do with transgender. It's a completely different thing.
They want to add them into the same mix, so it's another field that they can use
Yeah.
and say, look, you can't be unkind to these people. Look what's happened to them and all that. It's all because of the guns.
Yeah. What are you, with ISIS? So, yeah, it's that whole thing. I think it's...
Send David
Well,
Weiss the link. He says he's 2 minutes away from a good area, so
all
you can
right,
keep
okay.
going. We may get David Weiss for the end of the show. We shall see.
Yeah, cool. So, Robert, do you want to come on the next Hangout?
I'd love to. Yeah, it'd be really cool. Yeah, excellent.
Cool. Anybody, I'm going to go look at the chat. Anybody who has either been on a Hangout before or has not been on a Hangout before and is not nuts. In other words, if everybody around you is telling you that you're nuts, but you know that you're not, that's different to people not telling you that you're nuts, but instead hiding, okay? If you're the kind of person where people hide, then please don't come on the Hangout. But if you're the kind of person that everybody says, oh, you're just nuts, then you're welcome to come on the Hangout. So please leave a message in the chat, and I'll send you an invite, for the next one. I hope I made that clear about the craziness.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah. So, Lord Stephen Christ, people hide when you show around, just, because you go out, sending curses out. So you're not invited.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe something we can, in the minute or so before we get David here. I've always wanted to do like a little video log that explained how Mechanics of the Fourth War came to be, and how we ended up on this crazy train of interviewing people from Antarctica, and how this actually came about. I mean, it sort of started off with me trying to explain how magic is nonsense, and how the Hegelian how do you say that word, Antonio?
Dialect.
Alien dialectic.
The Hegelian dialectic, I can never wrap my tongue around it, is
If you
again
think-
just a load of nonsense that's injected into us from school with the light and the hope and the God and all this kind of
I
stuff.
mean, if you've seen David Blaine, you know what these expert neurolinguistic programmers and people that can sequence people's thoughts, so they can work it back. So instead of trying to help someone, they can use it to do things, and that's what David Blaine does. He uses it to manipulate people into certain situations, so he can read what they're doing or assess what they're going to do before they do it, and even so much so that he can do it against psychologists, because obviously this neuro-linguistic programming is quite a powerful technique, more powerful than any of these psychological processes that they use. So obviously, the government, it wouldn't be beyond realms of possibility that they get these people in to do events or to cause people to not to pay so much attention, and very good at misdirection like that. That's how they would do it. They wouldn't just then have someone that's rubbish at it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at a deeper level, our language is very much controlled, regardless of who's saying it and how they're saying it. Every word we use is manipulated and controlled. Fortunately, we've got David Weiss for us for some light relief about the most recent nonsense. So, how are you doing, David?
Orlando, that's so funny.
Orlando!
Oh my God.
Oh!
It's faker hook in Boston. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And what's going on is the alternative media, like the Ted Brower and Hagman and Dave Hodges and Alex Jones, they're all taking the red herrings that they throw out there that fit something. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, you just need to keep still. I think we're losing and getting your signal if you just keep in one place.
Okay. They throw out a bunch of red herrings where people said there was multiple shooters, and people said that somebody was holding the door closed. Then why they were saying that on the news, the guy gets cut off. So these independent media places are saying they don't want people to know that there's more than one shooter. They don't want the public to be scared. That is literally a red herring that goes down a dead-end hallway to make people think that this actually happened. There's video evidence, if you watch the video, of them carrying people out. One, they have the famous Boston no blood tourniquets on. They're not bleeding. They're closed up, but there's no blood. And they're carrying them towards the club. They're carrying them from away towards the crime scene. I mean, that is unexplainable. Unexplainable.
Wow. Yeah.
There's no ambulances.
Wait.
There was.
David, can you just go through that again? What you just said? They're carrying injured people.
Carrying injured people towards the club, because PK and How I See the World and some other researchers, YouTubers went down and did the Google Earth and said, all right, there's the Dunkin' Donuts, there's the club, and they're without a doubt, no question, they're carrying them towards the scene. So this was filmed over a number of days. Most of the footage that we're seeing was not from the night. It might have been done a year ago when they had the drill of the same scene happening. And it's the same thing that happens at all of these things. Boston was filmed over days with green screens, with crisis actors. But another thing that they do is something happened that night because there were people at that club. So they did it at 2 o'clock in the morning. They said there was about 300 people in there. Let's assume 100 of them are crisis actors, or 200. Doesn't matter. They go in there. They have maybe a couple guys with fake automatic weapons, and they start firing them. And what happens if you're in there and that happens? You're out of there in 2 seconds flat. You are running in a panic, right? So Antonio, you're in there. I'm in there because that's where we like to hang out. But I'm a crisis actor, and and you're running out the door, and I slap some blood on myself. I run out behind you, and I'm like, I just stepped over 10 dead bodies, and I tell you the story. You're gonna go home. You're gonna go on the news, and you're gonna tell the story that you got out within an inch of your life, and that you were jumping over dead bodies, and you're now a credible witness. That's some of the people we're seeing on TV, but most of them are reading scripts. They're looking down and reading the scripts. They're doing their gun control. A mother lost her son, doesn't know where her son is, and she's calling for the AR-15s to be banned. I mean, that doesn't happen. And she's wiping away tears. It doesn't happen like that. Somebody wrote in one of the comments on one of the videos. They said a guy said. They lost their son, not even to a tragic event. He died. Maybe it was cancer. I'm not sure what it was. And he said his wife didn't get out of bed for a year. 2 years later, she died from sorrow, and he can't even mention it without breaking, sobbing and sniffling and everything. And on all of these events, nobody cries.
Yeah, and they're just there immediately. Oh, camera crew, yeah, sure, I'll give you a statement about how my offspring just, died.
Not only that, she called for the ban of a particular type of gun.
AR-15. I mean, and it's always the same guy. Bought the weapon a week ago. Went in. Drove 100 miles or however far he drove to go into this club and mow people down in a way that even the best Navy SEAL couldn't do. I mean, he has to change clips so fast. And someone said one of the reports was someone got shot 11 times. How do you get shot 11 times? You're on the ground after 1 or 2 shots. What's he over? So the clips hold 30 bullets only. And so he's wasting 11 shots on one guy. I mean, if there's 300 people in there, somebody's going to tackle him. And the way he can shoot 100 people.
And this is in a gay club, right?
Right.
Right. So what they're also doing is they're playing gays as freaking pussies who are all screaming in the corner. Just because somebody's gay doesn't mean that he doesn't have balls. So if I was in that club, I'm gay, but I'm pretending like I am, and David's there and he's gay, and I'm questioning who he's with in the bathroom, and then somebody's shooting. After a while, when he's changing clips, somebody's going to say, fuck this shit, I'm having him, and he's going to launch themselves at them, whether they're gay or not. So this whole, it's just sat there changing clips, shooting people. It's just nonsense. That's not how the world actually works.
It's like
I think
like the
Judge
London
Judy.
event.
Yeah, Judge Judy
talking.
had somebody on. Yeah.
One of you, Robert. You go first.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
it was
Robert.
it was like the event in London where the Lee Wigsby got his head cut off by that black chap, and Chris Spivey ripped it all apart, showed it all, and in the end he ended up getting threatened, that kind of thing. So that says it all, really. Sorry, David, you go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Judge Judy had somebody on today, and they were somebody was calling for the it was such a hypocritical statement. I'm short circuiting on what it was, but basically saying, have these guns removed, and the person saying no, no, if people were allowed to carry, somebody would have shot him before he killed that many people, which is a good argument, except it's an argument about a fairy tale. But she said, I think it was her that said, no, they might shoot somebody. They might actually hit a bystander, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. So instead of possibly hitting a bystander, let this guy shoot 100 people. It's just impossible. The kill ratio, again, just like Sandy Hook, is impossible. Sandy Hook has been proven, to anybody that takes the time to look, that nobody died, nobody got hurt, and there was no shooter. Adam Lanza didn't
video
exist.
on this from you, David? Are we going to see this ripped to pieces?
Yeah, well, it's already ripped to pieces, and I'm just going to be sharing other people's videos. PK, and if you're not subbed to How I See the World, which is How I See It, and he also has another channel, How I See Sandy Hook. It's the guy that has a patch on his eye. Sub his channel, but I'll make a web page on Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, listing all of these videos in proper order. It's really ridiculous. If you go to my channel right now, DITRH, Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, just go to my playlist, and there it is, Orlando. There's a dozen videos right there. Go through them, and you'll be standing on the beach screaming about this stuff. While people walk by and look at you like you're a maniac.
Do you know what?
No, at all. Well, not in this circle, anyway.
Without caring.
So that's better. That's a better shot. Okay. Now stop moving around. You're giving me Blair Witch Project nausea. Okay.
Thank you.
So we spoke about this earlier. So what's actually happening now is when anybody tries to speak to a family member or a colleague or a friend about these kinds of things, unless you approach it in a way that they can actually assimilate what you're saying, rather than just straightforward barging down the door of cognitive. If you start explaining how things are corporations, including police forces and including nightclubs and crisis management agencies to hire actors. These are corporations. They use money. They tender for contracts. All these things. If you start from that conversation, you can then go to, and you have a crisis in a nightclub, and it's aired on television as an actual shooting. Now, whether the error happened where it wasn't actually exposed as a training drill, is that the news corporation is also a corporation, and they take money, and the people paying for it, there's money exchanging hands. All that has to happen is the company that does the actual drill, the police force, they hire the police force in the same way that football teams hire police forces. Whenever there's a huge match and they need extra police, it's paid for by the football team, not paid out of the police budget.
No, yes.
So this crisis team has hired police officers. They've contacted the police force and said, how many would like to, come and help us with this drill? The news crew go there, they film the drill. Then it goes out as an event that happened. The word drill gets dropped simply because it's not gone onto the prompter, or because a payment has been made to the news corporation to not mention the word drill. And that's it. There you go. You have it. And all that it takes is money. And we know that people will do all kinds of crazy stuff for money. So it's not beyond, if you mention this, if you talk to people about it this way, it's easier for them to get it than if you say, there were no actual victims, straight away they remember the images. Whereas if you walk them through these stages, which are all true.
The thing is, CNN put out video with warning on it. Warning, graphic video, remove the children, cover your eyes. But if you watch the video, it's nothing. It's a shaky camera behind a tree watching one gurney go by with nothing on it. I mean, that's the most graphic it gets.
Exactly. That's what we get in Britain. We get told, graphic warning, this news scene will contain horrifying images, and it doesn't contain horrifying images.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
It's literally ultimate mind control. We trust the mainstream media not to lie to us, so people trust what they hear on the mainstream media. then they separate our consciousness from rational, logical thinking to emotional thinking.
Right,
You know, so everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable!" And when your emotional brain kicks in, your logical brain just goes right to sleep, and that's it. And then you're unable to process information properly. You know, so
This,
you know
this is
that's
why
it.
this is why I'm saying if instead of going for the, there were no victims, which is an emotive thing, if instead you go through the pretty
Boom,
boring,
they shut
talk
down
about
as soon as you say
corporations.
that.
Yeah, if you take them through the, talk about corporations and finance, it's kind of boring. You say, how police forces are corporations like football teams, and you walk them through this. You've removed the emotive angle, the emotional aspects, you've removed it, and you can talk rationally to people. And you can then put the question, do you think it's possible that this could happen? And at least they will consider the idea rather than challenge you and say that you're full of shit because a friend's cousins, sisters, hairdressers, nieces, brothers, classmates knew somebody and all of that,
Right. Stories change dramatically or really fast. Like, back to my example, we're running out. I'm a crisis actor. I tell you, that somebody got shot by me and I got blood on me. You're going to go and say, somebody that was right there and he almost fell on you. Then someone's going to say, my good friend Antonio, it happened to him, and it just goes down the telephone. People have a need to be emotionally connected to these trauma events. Just like I live right here in Connecticut, and when Sandy Hook happened, everybody here was like emotionally attached to it. And if you even suggested
That's it,
that
yeah.
something was different from the
Joke.
official story,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
people would just shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what happens. It's how the media plays it. I tell you what was really peculiar here in the UK on Classic FM. They had the news, and it started off explaining that at the weekend it was the Queen's 90th birthday, celebrations, whatnot. Paedophilia. This person has just been caught and sent to jail for immediately after, and I thought, oh my God, this is pretty heavy, because usually what they do is they start with the horrible stories, and then to kind of let it go in, they then go on with the monarchy. This time it was the other way around, and it was immediately linked to mentioned with paedophilia, and that is not an association that the royal family want, I'm pretty sure. And I just thought, this is really interesting, the way this was timed. It looked like it was either timed on purpose to besmirch the royal family, or I don't know what, but it was something that doesn't usually happen. Usually the celebratory stories at the end, the puppies were saved, whatever.
A lot of stories with the Queen. Usually, stuff on her birthday or when her Diamond Jubilee. Weird stuff happens on those days. There's some theories that this was, a to celebrate, a 50-50 duality, 50 wounded, 50 dead, on her birthday. Other people, Trump was supposed to come out this week and just completely destroy the Clintons, but now that's not on the news. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe, just like there's multiple agendas, then maybe there's multiple reasons why, that they're doing it. You got the we must protect the gay, lesbian community, transgender community. We have to get rid of assault rifles. There was a couple other agendas I can't remember.
Well, we were talking about this just before we came on. It's the Hegelian dialectic. There you go. So right from the first time ever.
Hey, Nathan, why don't you tell David and Robert about Thomas Sheridan's discussion? That was kind of interesting.
Which one?
The one you passed me about the holy book, the unholy.
Oh, right. I can't remember which European country, but he had like a grimoire from
Portugal.
A Portuguese grimoire, and he was saying it was considered the most evil of all magic books, and if you read this, potentially people who are easily impressed or impressionable people would be possessed after reading it, and all this kind of stuff. And it's back to the very reason. It's probably why I was thinking about these things. The very reason why we did Mechanics of the Fourth Wall in the first place was to expel this sort of myth that there is, on the one hand, Like I said, you've got your Bible and you've got the worship of God and all of that is righteous. And then when you do a little bit of a scratching of the surface, when you look at Katy Perry and her showing you the subliminals that she's putting into her video, it's being told that you should look into this. You scratch the surface and find that the people who are allegedly in power are worshipping a different type of power, a dark power, evil spirits, grimoires, dark Bibles, all that kind of stuff. And that's just there to keep you in a sense of fear. If you think that God controls the world and then you find out that the people who do control the world worship Satan, you're there kept in this constant dichotomy of fear over what is good and what is evil. And the whole thing is horseshit.
Yes. And it's just the NLP. All that it really is neurolinguistic programming.
Yeah.
That's all. I started reading Anton Abbey's work, and after halfway through the first paragraph, I saw this guy was just very skilled at NLP. That's all. And I thought, I'm not reading anymore. I can see what this is going to do. It's going to mess with my fucking brain if I carry on reading it, because that's the point of it. It doesn't want. It's not there to bring illumination or to, push you over to the grips of the devil. It's there to fuck with your brain so that you think that the guy writing the book knows all kinds of stuff, and he doesn't. He's just made up all kinds of stuff.
Yep, spells and spelling, grammar. I mean, the word grammar comes from the word grimoire.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got a question for Robert going back to Antarctica about the sunsets.
Yep.
I assume on clear days you watch the sunset. Can you recall how long the sun lingered on the horizon? Like as it's moving down to the horizon, it's getting closer and closer. Can you remember how much it slowed down and how long it took to disappear once it was on a clear flat horizon?
Just trying to think back. It did take a long length of time. I think also because it was clear and there was no buildings or no structures, you could see a lot further within what perspective you have. It felt like it took a lot longer to go down. Yeah.
I have a cool photograph. I'm going to screen share it. I shared it before.
I'm right here at the beach, and you guys can see the sun there. It literally slows down, like the distance from there to the horizon. If you take that distance above it, that above the distance will take half the time it takes to get down to the horizon.
Yeah.
And the only thing, where we are, the land always eclipses the horizon if the clouds don't eclipse it first. If pollution doesn't eclipse it also, which I'll just throw into the cloud category. But in Antarctica, the air, you have a really clear, dry,
very pure
day. So the sun is going to disappear. It's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller until you can't see it anymore. And I was just wondering if you could recall seeing that.
I can recall seeing it getting very, like not a pinprick, but like a small pencil rather than like a orange in the sky. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it definitely got smaller, and because there was no thermal fluctuations, you're not getting heat rise up from the ice. That stabilized the image a lot better.
Can you see?
Right there is proof. I mean, because if we're on a spinning ball, the sun should move at a constant speed at all times until it goes below the horizon, then it should mark immediately.
Yeah. David, I don't know if you can...
I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah. This is one I was telling you about. Isn't that kind of weird, the way the circle of the sun looks like half of it is on... I mean, the sun is actually must be just above the horizon, very, very far away, and very freaking tiny in this photograph.
I gave you my opinion on this earlier.
Like, whatever.
My opinion is I completely agree with your analysis, but to somebody that doesn't understand where we live, it's too blared out to really make any. Yeah, it's not good evidence for somebody that doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
What was your response to that, David? Sorry, Robert.
Yeah, I agree with David totally. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
it's.
But David, I don't know if you saw when Robert was describing what the sun does in the summer. The sun comes up from the horizon,
so
it comes down to the horizon. It doesn't go round.
Right. No, I got that.
Yeah.
But you see it come up and then go down, but in reality, it's doing a happy face. But as I said, the tops of the smile, the ends of the smile, are the horizon when you can first see it, and the lowest part is when it's closest to you. That makes it higher,
right, yes, I
and
see
then it
what
goes
you mean.
back down. So
It's
you're
a
going to see
perspective
the
trick again,
opposite.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
like
nearer to you further away.
we don't see the shapes that we think we're seeing. I mean,
Okay,
No.
guys, let Robert actually respond to what you're saying.
Go ahead.
I do agree, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, all that's happening is if you draw a triangle between, and your one point, the point at the horizon where the sun comes up is 0.2, and where it goes down is 0.3. You've drawn a triangle. Now, if you add the line between the 2 points on the horizon, if you make that a straight line, your distance between you and point A, you and point B is the same, but your distance between you and the center, that the hypotenuse, is it called? That point, the
triangle.
sun is much closer to you. So obviously, it's higher. That's what happens. You just.
Oh, I see. Right, I see.
Is coming gradually closer to you, and then gradually further away. So we see it
like it's
lower.
rising. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is.
Excellent stuff. I think at that point, guys, I'm going to round out the show. So I'm going to say a massive, massive thank you to Robert Shortman for being on Mechanics of the Fourth Wall. I think we'll all agree it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much for being here, Robert.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Antonio, as well, and David. Lovely
Yeah,
show.
also a massive thank you to our special star appearance from David Weiss. I don't know if you want to turn the camera around just so we can see your smiling face once more, David.
Hey, there I am.
There you are. Yeah.
So thank you very much for being here also, David.
Thank you.
And
that was a great.
Oh, you've broken up.
You're breaking up because you're doing the Blair Witch.
That was.
So I'll also say a massive thank you to Antonio Subirats for being on Mechanics of the Fourth Wall. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Of course.
And to all of you who have joined us in chat, thank you for being here. It's been an absolute blast. I've been Nathan Oakley. I will see you all in the next video.